sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. It's been quite a bit. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrinasalvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursday for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I know it's been quite a minute. I did not stream this past Sunday because we had quite long streams last week with the DNC convention. So I did take this Sunday off, but this week, back on regular schedule. We have quite an interesting show for you tonight. I think you will appreciate it. Let's go ahead and start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat. What is going on? Sandra just saw the story about Mark Zuckerberg's letter to the House Judiciary Committee. Yeah, but that letter really didn't surprise me because Mark Zuckerberg admitted this before on Joe Rogan's show that he did receive pressure from the Biden administration about the content on Facebook. So that letter wasn't a surprise to me. Shout out to Tim F, a spoiler candidate. Kamala will lose in November as she should. Gaza is my red line. All these fake ass humanitarians are silent on a genocide. SMH genocide. Kamala can go to hell. Love you, Sabs. I hear you, man. Shout out to Miguel, says peace. Greetings. Y'all ain't ready. Thank you, Sabby, for another great live. Jill Stein 2024. RFK and Trump are no better than Kamala. Trump must be desperate for RFK. Well, he was, I guess, pulling some support from Donald Trump. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show because there will be new polls that are coming out. I do have one poll that's a little bit more up to date than the other ones that has happened post RFK announcement, but we'll have to wait about a week or so before we get more poll results. And then we'll need to see more poll results after, Tulsi Gabbard has now given her endorsement, but we'll get into all of that. Greetings, I know myself, the face of stubborn RFK. Don't like his crazy Gaza stance, but absolutely love his anti-cackle stance. Greetings, Max. Sabby, there are eerie similarities between the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Harris campaign. One of those being that Hillary Clinton avoided the media, much like Harris is doing now. Yes, well, it also, I guess, is important to mention to people that Harris is one of those politicians that was selected by the Clintons. And this goes back to her Senate race when she was running for Senate for the U.S. Senate. Even back then, the Clintons had really liked Kamala Harris, and that includes the Clinton donors as well. So again, like I said, she's someone that was selected early on. Shout out to Casey. Let them eat joy is Kamala Antoinette's economic policy. At least the chick that lost her head for this kind of plan allegedly offered to give people some cake. Oh, Casey has jokes. Greetings, Vicious. Sabby, you should cover Max Blumenthal confronting Kenan Thompson at Kamala's DNC event. We are covering the Max confrontation tonight. I believe that's in that video. Yeah, I believe it is. If I remember correctly. Thank you. What's up, Thon? Hi, family. Vote Jill Stein and leave the duopoly. Shout out to New York Varsity. Your predictions are like spoiler alert, Sabs. Shooby-dooby-doo. Let's go. It's funny, too, because I'm usually the one that people are like, don't say anything. You're going to spoil the movie. I'm usually the one that likes to spoil the movie or whatever. I said hello to Miguel. Greetings to my comrade JB. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Sabs. I think if Kamala does lose, it will be either because of the economy or Gaza or both. People are suffering here. Forehead kisses to all in here. Like the stream. Yeah, go ahead and start us off with a like. And don't forget to answer that poll question. I peeked at it for just a second before I went live. And it's actually pretty close right now. But we don't know if it'll stay that way throughout the whole stream. But I'm curious to see how that turns out. Greetings. Aline says, hey, Sabrina, thank you for keeping me on. What is going on? You are welcome. Shout out to Adonia. Hey, Sabby fam, keep the truth coming, Sabby. It's helping me intellectually fight with my family who are voting for Kamala Harris. I hear you, bud. I hear you. Greetings, Hannah says, glad you're back, Sabby. Shout out to Zach. Damn, I really do be in the lobby, though. Let me go ahead and answer this question. Is it true that Jill Stein may be endorsing Trump? This guy, Steve Ram, said it yesterday on his platform. I was looking for articles to confirm, but nothing. No, Jill Stein is not endorsing Donald Trump. Again, as we get closer to the election, closer to November, you're going to see a lot of smears towards third-party candidates. I mean, people always smear Jill, but as we get closer to the election, you're going to see more of that. Jill Stein has never endorsed either side of the duopoly. She's never been known to drop out either. So no, she's not endorsing Donald Trump. Absolutely not. Shout out to Lorez says, hi, Sab, Eric, Corey, and RB and fam. Been busy, but I'm still trying to listen to your show live, like now or podcast later. This year, 2024 has been a whirlwind. I picked not a strong candidate. Must be referring to the poll. Smash like y'all. Yeah. Shout out to Ashura says, I say option 4 on the poll. Okay. I forgot what option 4 was. I have to go back and check that. Greetings, Anthony. Kamala is not a good candidate. Too disingenuous. Ooh, like I said, that poll is pretty close when I looked at it. Greetings. What's up to Charlie Mack, my Massachusetts buddy? Hey, fam. Hope you all are getting through the week okay. Shout out to Eric T. Red says, Tulsi LOL. Oh, that is going to be an interesting story we get into. Greetings, Zoe says, great poll question. Thank you. I think I'm getting better with the polls. I'm trying to get better and not have the options just be yes, no, maybe, or I don't know. So I'm trying to give you more options there with the poll. So yeah, greetings, K8 Mac, just barely Charlie Mac, but thanks. Shout out to Steve says, hello, everybody. And greetings, Grassy Knoll says, Tulsi did call out Kamala Harris. Yes, she did. Let's go ahead and dive in, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the super chat, Flower Bro. From the roster to the sea, Harris gets no vote from me. That's a good one, Flower Bro. That is a really, really good one. Let's give a shout out here to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys for your support. Really appreciate you around here. Round here. A little bit of Counting Crows for you. Remember Counting Crows? Mr. Jones and me. Anywho, it's a 90s week. Okay. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about Sabbies. And of course, members. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you so much. And I want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Mark Mitchell and Tommy Kelly. Tommy Kelly sounds like a member of a band. Tommy Kelly and the 4 Guys, or Tommy Kelly and the Sabinators. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I know. Can you tell I'm already in a silly kind of mood? Can you guys tell? This week has been a 90s week for me. I'll tell you what I mean about that. Some of you guys know I'm like really into movies, right? And when it comes to TV shows, I prefer to watch like a Netflix TV show or a Hulu made TV show. I don't like new sitcoms. I just don't think they're funny. And we started watching Martin again. Martin is on Netflix now. So like I got excited when Friends was on Netflix. And now they have Martin on Netflix. So we're starting back from the beginning, watching Martin all over again. And it's just funny because like the sitcom Martin, even though those jokes, it's obviously the show was from the 90s, but the jokes are still funny. They're not like cheesy, you know? So if I go back and I watch Full House, it's like, these jokes are kind of cheesy, but they weren't as cheesy at the time. But going back and watching Martin again, I'm still laughing my ass off, right? So we tried to find Living Color. And it turns out that no streaming service is featuring in living color because apparently Disney owns it and owns the syndication, and they haven't released it to anyone. So if you guys know of another way, because I looked and I couldn't find it, but if you know of another way that I can watch and live in color again, we saw a couple of clips on YouTube of it where they were making fun of musicians. So like I saw the Michael Jackson one, Am I Black or White? We watched that one again. The Vanilla Ice one, they made fun of Paul Abdul. So those clips are on YouTube. But if you know of a way where I can find the full episodes again, just let me know, because no streaming service that I found is carrying it. So that just sucks. I know. Kamodi says Fire Marshal Bill. Yeah. Let me tell you something. And homie, don't play that. Yeah, Homie the Clown. Homie, don't play that. Oh, man, I love that show. And it's still funny today. Still funny today. So that's timeless comedy, right? Hard to find nowadays. Hard to find. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what are we discussing tonight? Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail. And yes, I agree, Cynical. Living Single is better than Friends. I agree. And Living Single was first. Friends was a copycat of Living Single. A lot of people don't know that. But that's where the whole plot and everything comes from, Living Single. Okay. And Bryce too. I love Homie the Clown. Yeah, I know. I love it. Okay. What are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's get to that thumbnail. Again, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and answer that poll. But it's time to dive in, folks. Tonight, we are discussing RFK and Tulsi received the Trump backlash. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, RFK Jr. endorsed Donald Trump. I covered that live when he was announcing that he was sort of dropping out, at least dropping out of these swing states. I'm going to give you an update about that too, by the way. And now Tulsi Gabbard has endorsed Donald Trump, which wasn't a surprise to me, but apparently, according to people on social media, they found that to be a surprise. I don't know why. I don't know why. We are also discussing Max Blumenthal did something pretty epic at the DNC convention, man. He got some of these politicians and celebrity on camera, asking them about, obviously, Kamala Harris's campaign and, of course, Gaza. We're going to dive into that. We're going to talk about the celebrification of politicians and why that is a problem. We're also going to discuss Mehdi Hasan called out Kamala Harris. Yes, he did. And I'll tell you, okay, Mehdi, like, he's good on some things and on other things, you know, not so good, where I mean, like, he will still like defend the Democratic Party, but at the same time, he's good at calling out certain things when it needs to be called out. But don't get it wrong, he's still supporting the duopoly. And last but not least, if this is the case of the week, ladies and gentlemen, Telegram founder arrested. That is a picture of him there. We're going to talk about what happened to him in France and how this is also connected to the founder of, or the CEO of, Rumble, and what this means for censorship. So you guys know how I feel about that. And we need to talk about how, you know, regardless of the platform, there's censorship. It doesn't matter if it's not YouTube and it's Rumble or Telegram or it's Substack. There is still censorship. And we're going to talk about what happened to the Telegram founder, because that is very concerning. And what does this mean for the rest of us? Yeah. All right. So start us off right by smashing that like button. Thank you so much. And we're going to dive into our first story here. Telegram. It's one of those apps that you can use to speak a little bit more freely and also supposedly a little bit more privately, but I guess not really. I'm on Telegram. A lot of us in independent media are on Telegram, so you can usually find us there. There's things that we can discuss on there that we can't discuss on YouTube or even Rumble sometimes, to be honest with you. So the founder, CEO of Telegram, Pavel Durov, he was arrested in France. We're going to get started with this clip here from the BBC, and we're going to talk about the warning that he gave to people when he had this conversation with Tucker Carlson before everything went down. Let's dive into this clip here.
The Russian founder of the Telegram messaging app, Pavel Durov, has been arrested at a French airport. Reports say authorities have been investigating a lack of moderators on the app, which they say allows criminal activity to take place. Our correspondent Will Vernon explains what we know about the arrest.
Yeah, this is coming from a number of French media who quote sources in French law enforcement who say that Pavel Durov was arrested on Saturday evening last night at an airport near Paris. He'd apparently arrived on his private jet from Azerbaijan, and they're saying that he was arrested on the basis of an arrest warrant that was issued in connection with Telegram's failure to moderate illegal content and cooperate with law enforcement over drug trafficking, child sexual content and fraud. This is just coming from French media, we should stress. Of course, Telegram would almost certainly deny all of those allegations, but...
Pause. I'm so glad that he did say, remember, this is the statement that is coming from French media. So obviously French media is going to favor the arrest that happened because he was arrested in France. So obviously they're going to back up their country and the actions that happened there. But I think what's important to note is that this idea of not having a moderator, right? So let me tell you what they're really trying to say. You don't have someone there to censor people. That's really what that means. You don't have someone there to censor people. You don't have someone there to remove people from the platform. You don't have someone there to remove certain content from the platform. Now, based on what I've seen on Telegram, I haven't seen any of that type of information that is incriminating. I have seen a lot of foreign policy that's on Telegram, and I'm going to show you one of the things that I think may have caused this that has been featured on Telegram, but it really is one of those apps that you can go to and you can discuss more about Russia and Ukraine on Telegram that you can't do obviously like on YouTube. Even on Twitter, you have to be careful because Elon has been known to suspend people if they don't talk about things in a certain way that he feels serves the purpose of the establishment. So there's that as well. But just keep in mind what he's saying. That is what the French media is saying. Pavel arrived on a private jet. This is someone who is very wealthy. This is not just a regular middle class or working class Joe Schmo, very wealthy guy. And they took him down. So if they can take down someone that is wealthy and someone that's a little bit powerful, that should send a warning to everyone.
We'll have to see now whether he could appear in court today. French media are saying he could be indicted today. And of course, what the reaction will be. You mentioned that the Russian Foreign Ministry, they've said that diplomats in Paris are urgently working in connection with his arrest.
Over the years, we haven't heard a lot about him in public. He's been quite a private person. But more recently, he did a long interview with Tucker Carlson in America, and so has come out more in public, hasn't he?
Yeah, yep. He has. He was quite vocal when he was still in Russia. You mentioned that in 2014, he fell out with the authorities. According to him, the Kremlin tried to basically take control of the company. They tried to force VK, which is the company that he created, Russia's version of Facebook, to hand over personal data from of pro-Ukrainian protesters, anti-Kremlin protesters. According to Durov, the company refused to do that, and he was basically forced to sell it to a company that had close links to the Kremlin.
So do you see this? This is not the first time where the government has come after the CEO of Telegram. This happened to him before, right?
VK is now almost totally under the control of the Russian security services.
That is our correspondent, Will Vernon. Just a line that we're getting in from the AFP news agency, which is the French news agency. They are saying that Russia says France are refusing to cooperate after the arrest of that Telegram.
Yeah. So well said here, Ginger. Ginger said French media is no better than the US or UK media, apparently. No, because it's all owned by the West. So they're still part of the West. So don't be surprised if they have similar forms of censorship. I seem to remember Glenn Greenwald last year. He warned people what Rumble was doing in Brazil. They were censoring Rumble in Brazil, which is where Glenn resides. So the feelers have been out there for quite some time, but I want to show you what I think may have caused this. Check this out, fam. Casey Wright shared this. The founder of Telegram crossed Benjamin Netanyahu by allowing classified Israeli documents to be shared. He clearly refused to cooperate, and now he is paying the consequences. Let's take a look at these screenshots here. It says right here, after Iran steals sensitive Israeli data, Israel tries to censor the internet. Listen to this. A few months ago, foreign hackers managed to break into a computer linked to Israel's justice ministry. Tens of thousands of classified files and sensitive emails were leaked. Links allowing anyone to download the breached files were published on Telegram, the popular instant messaging app. So, of course, we would know at some point this would all lead back to Israel. I think this could have been the target here. This could have been the key that made the censorship police come after Telegram. It could have been. Now, there's a little bit more here I want to show you as well. The picture of Benjamin Netanyahu, and of course, that's Paval. But these are the kind of things that we need to pay attention to, folks. So think about that. They're saying, again, classified Israeli documents were shared on Telegram. And when they say that there is no moderator, that means there was no one there to either remove that information or to ban that information. So I think this could have been the key that led them down that path. Now, I want to remind everyone, before all this happened, remember, he was on Tucker Carlson's show. Shout out to Hotspot for sharing this. Telegraph founder Paval tells Tucker Carlson that the U.S. government tried hiring Telegram's engineer in order to install backdoors into Telegram's code and spy on users. Just a reminder, before he was arrested, he tried to warn people what was happening.
We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the U.S. So to give you an example, last time I was in the U.S., I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, wherever they are called.
The U.S. government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the U.S. government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The U.S. government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
Okay, everybody, remember that. So this is just a reminder again, and this reminds me of the warning that Mark Zuckerberg gave when he was on Joe Rogan's show, when he said that the Biden administration heavily, pushed him to censor certain content on Facebook, or one story in particular was the Hunter Biden laptop story, but that's not the only one. So a lot of these, tech CEOs have been targeted by the government, asking them to censor certain types of information. So this is why I tell people, when people say, oh, forget YouTube, just go to Rumble, just go to Rockfin, just go to da-da-da. Like, it's only a matter of time before they start to come after all of them. And it appears now they're coming after Telegram, which I would say you can get away with a lot more on Telegram than you can even on Rumble. For a long time, I feel like Telegram just kind of flew under the radar, but apparently not so much anymore. But this is censorship, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that they have arrested this guy, again, and this wealthy dude. So just think about that. They took him down. The fact that they arrested him, they're trying to silence that platform. They can miss me with the whole, you're not moderating the content. The reality is they don't want the app out there to begin with. And I want to show you what the creator of Rumble is now saying. So he was concerned when this happened to Paval. Chris Pavlovsky, so he's the CEO of Rumble. He said, I'm a little late to this, but for good reason. I've just safely departed from Europe. France has threatened Rumble. See what I was telling you? how they go with one platform and then they start to target another. France has threatened Rumble, and now they have crossed a red line by arresting Telegram CEO Pavel Durov, reportedly for not censoring speech. Rumble will not stand for this behavior and will use every legal means available to fight for freedom of expression, a universal human right. We are currently fighting in the courts of France, and we hope for Pavel's immediate release. So he tweeted this on the 25th, so the other day. Now, Chris went on to say, these are all the countries that have banned Rumble. China bans Rumble. France threatens Rumble. We leave. Brazil threatens Rumble. We leave. The UK threatens Rumble. Russia bans Rumble. New Zealand threatens Rumble. France arrests Telegram CEO. Free speech is under major assault, and I will not stop fighting for it. So I don't know if everybody knew this, but this is important for everyone to see all these different countries that targeted Rumble, right? Even the UK, which is interesting because, I mean, Rumble's here in the US and the UK is like our redheaded stepchild or something. I don't know. Like, is that a good way to describe the UK? Or like the UK is like an extension of the United States, right? So it's interesting that they have threatened Rumble. And also, don't forget, look, Russia and China also banned Rumble. So again, just another example to show you how free speech is under attack. And that's very concerning. And so Chris, and I don't blame him, Chris was just like, I'm out of here because I'm not going to stick around in France and see if they come after me. He's like, are they going to arrest me next? I'm getting out of Europe. I'm getting out of here. So that's what Chris has decided to do. It's crazy stuff. And then another thing that's been called out about this particular situation is President Macron. President Macron uses essentially Telegram as a main means of communication with his staff. Now connect the dots. Shout out to Angelo for this. With the arrest of founder Telegram Pavel. What does Telegram know about Macron? And you can see a screenshot here. Macron's pick of encrypted messaging app isn't what you might expect. Top officials use consumer products for government exchanges. President and advisors started using Telegram in 2016. So back to Macron. Pavel was arrested in France. What if there was something on Telegram that exposed Macron? And you know, Macron, he's been a pretty controversial figure, right? We covered the France protest last year, but what if there was information that was leaked on Telegram that was incriminating about President Macron? You can tell me this guy flies into France and just like that, he's arrested? Macron wants to shut that down, I would say, right? That's what it seems like to me. We may never know. But what's interesting is the hypocrisy around this, the hypocrisy that Macron is still like bragging about this commitment to freedom of expression. And shout out to Chris Minahan for this one. French President Emmanuel Macron touted France's alleged deep commitment to freedom of expression on Monday after arresting Telegram founder Pavel Durov for not having enough moderation on his social media site. And that's from this outlet here. Macron claims France is deeply committed to freedom of expression after the arrest. I mean, guys, you cannot help but laugh at the hypocrisy. And I want you to understand that when you hear politicians say this, and they're the ones that are censoring people, when you hear them say, oh, we're totally committed to that freedom of expression, what they really mean is they agree to you expressing what they approve of. So if you approve of the country's narrative or the French government's narrative, they're probably, oh, great, express yourself. But if there's information that is on that app that could be damning about the French government, including Macron, then all of a sudden it's not about freedom of expression. They just want to shut you down. Julian Assange was recently released. Julian Assange is now home with his family. But Julian Assange spent years in Belmarsh for doing his job. Just being a publisher. And it is very clear to me the West has not learned anything from Julian Assange. Because they're still censoring people. They're still targeting people. They're targeting people that are CEOs of these companies. They have not learned anything from Julian Assange. Now, Chris, again, CEO of Rumble, says, when you say you are committed to freedom of expression, you are lying. We have a letter from France that proves this without a doubt. We had to shut down Rumble in France because you have no commitment to freedom of expression. And that is him retweeting Macron here. I have seen false information regarding France following the arrest of Pavel. France is deeply committed to freedom of expression and communication, to innovation, and to the spirit of entrepreneurship, and it will remain so. So, of course, he's full of crap. And I just think that we are seeing a lot of people be exposed when it comes to censorship, when it comes to the right of free speech, because I never thought in my lifetime I would see the government cracking down on all these platforms. Listen, I'm old enough to remember when there was AOL Instant Messenger. Do you guys remember that? I'm old enough to remember when there was no Wi-Fi. Like, you could not use the phone and the internet at the same time. So if you wanted to use the internet, you had to unplug the phone and plug in the phone line and use the phone so you can use AOL Instant Messenger. So I'm old enough to remember that. And there were a number of things that were on AOL Instant Messenger that I feel like there was no crackdown on or anything. But as social media started to develop, this is when things begin to change, whether it was Facebook, MySpace, and rest in peace, MySpace. But all of these other platforms that have been created since then, the Twitter and what's the other one? The Snapchat? People still use Snapchat? Yeah. So Snapchat and, of course, TikTok. And it seems like these platforms weren't a problem until they started to present a narrative that the State Department and a lot of government agencies did not approve of. Facebook was totally fine with you if you were sharing pictures of your dog and your cat and you giving a hug to your boyfriend. But the moment people started to use it to criticize politicians, to criticize the deep state, all of a sudden, they were like, no, we got to crack down and implement censorship. Now, I don't use Facebook as much as I used to because Facebook has too many damn ads. I can't scroll past 2 posts without seeing an ad. It's ridiculous. Twitter seemed to have, not as much problem with you until it was the 2016 election. Was that when that started? I feel like Hillary and Trump. And all of a sudden it was, we got to start suppressing people. Whoa. Censorship here. TikTok was totally fine with you as long as you were dancing and you were making fun of movies or you were imitating actors. TikTok was totally fine with you and the government was totally fine with you dancing on TikTok. But the moment people started to use TikTok to inform people about imperialism, about war, about Gaza, all of a sudden, the ADL says, nope, we got to stop this. Next thing you know, the government wants to crack down on TikTok and they want to use the excuse of China, even though the creator of TikTok is from Singapore. So what have we learned, ladies and gentlemen? That we don't really have freedom of expression. We don't really have free speech. We are allowed to say and express what the State Department approves of. And how long is that? That's for a limited time, right? That's why you see all these people get deplatformed. That's why you see people get fired from media jobs because they're not going with the State Department narrative. And the ones who remain in corporate media, this is a good thing to point to, the ones who remain there, the ones who were not fired like Mehdi Hasan or Mark Lamont Hill or Don Lemon or Chris Cuomo. We can go on and on, right? But the ones who remain, those are the ones that have decided to play the game and they are not willing to rock the boat because they want to keep their cushy cushy gig. They want to keep making millions of dollars, and they don't want to give up that lifestyle. And you always have to keep that in mind. But what just happened to the CEO of Telegram, you should not just brush that aside. Who's next? It's been Telegram, it's been TikTok, it's been Facebook. Who's next? We got to protect the speech, guys. Got to protect the speech. All right, let's go to some of the comments in the chat, folks. Dwayne, if you're still in corporate media, it's because you're compromised. Right. You're willing to go along with the game. And a lot of people are. It's just a reality, right? Gilbert says they got Telegraph, they got Elon, him and Matt ain't effing with each other. I'm telling you. Dwayne also said MSNBC fired Donahue, may he rest in power. Yeah, perfect example. Phil Donahue, who just recently passed away, he criticized the war in Iraq, was against that. And also Phil Donahue had some interesting discussions on his show. Like you can find a discussion when it was Sister Soldier and Cornel West, when they like kind of had a back and forth on Phil Donahue's show. So there were topics on that show that I think he was ahead of his time. Like I look back on that and I'm like, maybe Phil Donahue was ahead of his time, because now there are more people that are calling out these wars, that are calling out the war machine, right? He was just ahead of his time. Thank you for the super chat, Kevin. Video, both Trumpism and anti-Trumpism are fake decoy revolutions by Caitlin Johnstone. Also, Tulsi's irrelevant. Yeah, Caitlin's really good on that. Thank you, David. Hey, some people are saying if you don't accept Kamala as Black, then you can't accept Malcolm X and Farrakhan. It's BS Sabby. I'm your Dominican sub. So Malcolm X's father is a Black American, was a Black American. His mother, I believe, was from Grenada. So he does have one parent that was a Black American. So he's still considered to be a freedman. Kamala Harris, one of her parents is from Jamaica and one is from India. So by definition, she would not be considered to be a Black American. And I'm glad more people are having this conversation, like, to be honest with you. I had a number of people that reached out to me and they were like, I had no idea. I thought that, you know, you were Black based on your skin color. I'm like, no, by definition, that's really not how it works. Really not. Because if that was how it worked by definition, then my friend who's Dominican, who is actually, you know, she's darker shade than me, she would also be considered a Black American, and she's not. So something to think about. Thank you, Cynical. Periscope and old school Twitter was great. Yeah. Does everybody remember MySpace? Do you guys remember? I don't know. Are there some, is everybody in the chat old enough to remember MySpace? Remember MySpace and like your first friend was that guy named Tom? And I don't think anybody really knew who Tom was till later on. They're like, oh, this is the guy who apparently created MySpace. Do you remember? Danny said, yeah, I do. Tim says, yes. Yeah, Black Magic said Tom was my friend. Yeah, it said Tom is your friend. Casey said I was. Yeah, so you guys remember MySpace, right? So I don't know why MySpace ended. I actually liked MySpace. Some people are like, Sabs, MySpace was so boring. Like, no, I liked MySpace. I felt like creatively you could do a little bit more on MySpace than you could with Facebook. And at one point, like a year or so ago, I believe there was like this chant that was happening on Twitter that said, bring back MySpace. I wonder what happened to Tom. Oh, well. I see a lot of you. Okay, you're all familiar with it. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Tom. Oh, maybe we need to look into this. What happened to Tom? What is this? Blackjack said Justin Timberlake bought it and turned it into a mission platform. Yeah, MySpace was fun. I remember Black Planet 2, The Peacekeeper. Yeah, a lot of these things just didn't stick around. And honestly, it wasn't a social media site, but I was a big fan of Napster. So when that was shut down, I was like, now where am I supposed to get these songs? And now Spotify, you know, all these other Music apps are created later, like Spotify, and now all of a sudden it's okay to download songs and download music. And but back then, man, Napster was like breaking all the rules, breaking all the rules and changing the game. But the guy I think who created Napster later on was the guy who brought Zuckerberg to California for Facebook. If I remember correctly, I believe that's the same guy who told Zuckerberg, hey, I like what you're doing with this book face or whatever it is site. And I want you to come all the way out to California and we're going to make this like a thing. I believe that was the same guy. Let me know. All right. Okay, guys, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you very much. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a damn Care Bear. And we're going on to our second story. I do have to highlight this. I'm so sorry. I got to highlight this. Skylar said burning CDs was my whole side hustle in school. I got so many guys coupled up with girls with the power of my compilation CDs. LOL. Yes. I love to burn CDs. And I still remember the day when laptops no longer, on the side of the laptop, it no longer came with the disc option. So you could put the blank disc in and burn a CD. I have so many burn CDs. I still have them. And I just gave them different themes and stuff like that. So you guys remember? Yeah, man. Yeah, the DVD drop. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Some things I like technology, but I think some things I really wish would have kind of just stayed in play. I really liked going to Blockbuster and picking out a movie. I liked doing that. I liked burning CDs, you know, and then Redbox came out and that kind of replaced Blockbuster. And then next thing you know, it was just everything's just streamed online. But yeah, I love the 90s. Okay, next story, guys. Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi Hasan had some things to say about Kamala Harris. And this goes back to the DNC convention. It goes back to the speech that she gave surrounding Gaza. And so before we get to what Mehdi Hasan said on corporate media, by the way, I want to show you what CNN said, how they discussed this issue about the uncommitted movement. They felt as though they should be happy with what they were given. You have to hear the way that they speak about them. So shout out to Case Study QB for this clip. Case Study's always doing the darn thing, discussing how Vice President Harris handled the uncommitted delegates at the DNC. Listen to this.
Let's start with how Harris kind of navigated this at the DNC, which is to say they didn't broke any of it. And in fact, when Susan Rice was talking with my colleague Jake Tapper about the uncommitted faction, they were delegates who were uncommitted to initially Biden, but also Harris. And she basically said, okay, it's a little bit rich that people who aren't not committing to Harris want a piece of the stage at her convention. But it seemed very clear to me they wanted to send a strong message that they were not sort of engaging in this really, while at the same time making sure that she took a tone in her own speech that was different from where Biden was on this. How did you look at all of that?
No, I'm sorry. We'll disprove that in a second. It really wasn't different from where Biden was on that. That is the narrative that corporate media is trying to sell you so that you think that you're getting something different when it comes to Israel and Gaza, but you're not, or that you think you're getting something different when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to Kamala Harris compared to Biden, but you're actually not. And I want to remind everyone the speech that one of the uncommitted movement members wanted to give at the DNC, it was already vetted. So Kamala's team already read the speech. They knew what she was going to say. She did go on to read this speech later on corporate media. So they've been on a number of shows since the DNC convention. And one of the things that was interesting to me is that in that speech, she was endorsing Kamala Harris. And even though she was still endorsing Kamala Harris, they did not want them to speak. They did not want to have a Palestinian American speaker. And as I told you before, that is discrimination.
Yeah, I think that the vice president has shown a strong vision for how to resolve this current war, a call for a ceasefire exchange for hostages, a strong argument for supporting Israeli security, as well as for Palestinian self-determination, ultimately two-state solution.
That's no different from what Biden said.
Hard to understand what more people could want out of a presidential candidate. That was the most forward-leaning speech I've ever seen at a convention. And
it is hard to understand what more could people want. So we're talking about a genocide. We're talking about Palestinians being sexually assaulted at Palestinian detention center, and the soldiers that have done that have been praised as celebrities on Israeli media. We've covered that on this show as well. We're talking about land seizure, the largest land seizure in the West Bank, where Palestinians are being pushed out of their homes. Their homes are being stolen from them. They can't leave to go to work without settlers taking their homes. We have videos of settlers cutting off the water in the West Bank so that Palestinians won't have access to the water. But what more could you want, right? What more could you want? It's just the tone deafness. The tone deafness. So what they are arguing is that because Kamala Harris in her speech said, well, Palestinians need the right to self-determination, et cetera, and Israel has the right to defend itself, that the members of the uncommitted movement and actually Palestinian Americans altogether should just be satisfied with that. They should be happy with that. They shouldn't ask for anything more. When you let one side speak on the stage and talk about their pain and their hurt, but you don't let the other side speak on the stage and talk about their pain and their hurt, especially when there's more casualties on the Palestinian side, that is discrimination. That's bigotry. The same thing that you accuse the Republican Party of doing. The Democratic Party is doing this as well.
I think the crowd responded as well to her calls for Israeli security. And the folks pushing uncommitted also had a lot of behind the scenes engagement with the campaign. They had official events at the DNC. They were in touch directly. They did move the needle on much of the rhetoric. So that's a win. Take the win. I'm not sure why they're not saying we support you and now we're ready to do more. It seems like a little bit of an own goal, quite frankly.
It is quite embarrassing. I wonder what the media was like, during other oppressed groups around the world. How dare those people ask for anything more? What more could you want? People in Gaza are still dying. People in Gaza are either dying from starvation or from bombs, but they're still dying. And she laughed. So this is the tone deafness. This is the American individualism, right? They're not caring about that. Just be satisfied with the little bit that we gave you. How is that any different from what the Democratic Party says to the voters all the time when we complain? Be happy with the crumbs that we gave you. Otherwise, you're going to get Donald Trump. This is no different. But how do you say that to people who have lost entire family lines to a genocide? How do you say that to those people when you're backing the people that are doing the genocide? And that's funny to her? Corporate media is a big problem because they control the narrative. Now, Mehdi Hasan, however, had some things to say about Kamala Harris's speech, and he was not as friendly and nice about her speech as those two pundits you just saw on CNN were. In fact, he had this discussion. I believe this is on, is this Amar's show? He had this discussion on MSNBC, which is interesting, considering that's the network that he used to be a part of. Listen to what Mehdi says.
I'm back with Mehdi and Dean. Mehdi, let me ask you something. Little things make a difference. And there was one little thing that some people are critical of. In all of this big tent in which room was made for lots and lots of people, there wasn't 2 minutes of room made for an elected, a Palestinian American. which ironically, when you look at this uncommitted movement, they were the only people other than Kamala Harris who even had delegates elected to the convention. Tell me what you know about this and what you think about it.
Yeah, so let's just be clear, Ali. A lot of people are saying, well, these people are anti-Democrat, they're anti the Democratic Party. Why should they be allowed on stage? The uncommitted movement came to the Democratic Party having won hundreds of thousands of votes, 700,000 votes in the Democratic Party primaries, right? More than 100,000 in Michigan alone, key swing state. They sent 30 delegates, I think, from multiple states to the DNC. The idea, as Jon Stewart joked this week, sarcastically, over 4 nights, 8 hours a night, they couldn't find a slot for a Palestinian-American lawmaker. The uncommitted movement, let's just be clear, because there's been a lot of misinformation floating around. The uncommitted movement, which wants an end to arms being sent to Israel to kill kids in Gaza, offered up multiple voices who were turned down by the DNC. Finally, they offered up an elected lawmaker from Georgia, a state representative from Atlanta, Palestinian woman named Aurora Oman. She wrote a speech which was then vetted by the DNC, a speech, by the way, that endorsed Kamala Harris for president. So the DNC still said, well, you can't come on stage, even though we'll have the Israeli parents of a hostage in Gaza, which was a good move. All of us support the idea of calling for hostages to be released from Gaza. But to have the Israeli parents of a hostage on stage and then say, but we're not going to have a Palestinian American on stage, even though your platform says we value Israeli and Palestinian lives together, is discriminatory. There's no other word for that. It's erasure of Palestinians. And by the way, it's dumb, Ali. It's just dumb. The Democrats missed out on an opportunity in prime time to have a Palestinian American lawmaker from a swing state in a hijab endorse Kamala Harris. That's just dumb. As we discussed before the break, it's a close election. You need every vote.
Let me just push back on something that Mehdi Hasan said here when he said they missed an opportunity. They didn't miss out on anything. They are doing what their donors want them to do. I'm pretty sure AIPAC was in that convention. I'm pretty sure they were there. I wouldn't be surprised if J Street was there as well. So Kamala Harris not allowing a Palestinian American to speak on that stage, that's exactly what AIPAC and J Street wanted her to do. So once again, this goes back to the money and the corruption. She's not answering to the people. She's answering to the donors. So you always have to follow the money trail. Don't forget Kamala Harris. They're saying she got a lot of small money donations. Yeah, but she also received billionaire donations too. Remember when she first announced, they said Wall Street is backing her. So she is doing the bidding of those donors. Everybody has to put this connection here. You have to connect the pieces of the puzzle. Who is really making the decisions? Now, if Kamala Harris didn't have corporate money, and if Kamala Harris just was relying on grassroots donations like Bernie Sanders did, this could have been a whole different story. But then she also probably wouldn't have been standing up on that stage as the nominee. Always follow the money.
Ruler Oman's going to join me in the next hour. He is an elected Palestinian-American representative in the Georgia State House. Part of the frustration with this is that it wouldn't have been hard to do the right thing on this one. Your argument that you've made is that Kamala Harris is pointed in the right direction on this issue.
Definitely, absolutely. First of all, I'm Palestinian American, so thank you for having me on this show.
Yes, sir.
So there's more Palestinian American.
A lot of negotiation went into this.
Right, than under DNC. And look, that's a political choice by them. They're saying who we're going to value. That's the reality. I will say this about Vice President Harris. Her words about dignity, self-determination of Palestinians and security was historic. I went back and looked at every Democratic National Convention speech, Democratic candidate accepting the nomination. Only one said the word Palestine. 1996, Bill Clinton. Nobody ever said dignity, self-determination. The crowd cheered. I wish my late Palestinian father was there, not just to see the words.
Pause. This is the second time you have heard during this story from both videos, the crowd cheered. Who's in the crowd? You have delegates and you have influencers, and the influencers are paid. They're paid to be there. People have to understand that. So again, who is in the crowd? Mainly the delegates, the influencers, and corporate interest. So you have Wall Street there. You have big donors there. So keep in mind who's in that crowd when they say the crowd cheers.
But they hear the crowd cheer, but it's policy. That's what everyone wants to see. So look, she's a candidate. She's telling us maybe this is going to be our policy. We need an articulation of policy so this ends, this nightmare in Gaza, like it's something out of World War I that we're living through here. My family's in the West Bank. We've seen more taking of land in the last year and settler violence than we've seen in years. And the Netanyahu and his administration are backing this. So I don't come at this from political. It's personal for me and many in my community. Our families are being killed, driven off their land, terrorized with American weaponry, with the backing of the United States of America at the UN, vetoing resolutions. That's got to end. That's the policy we want to see. And of course, complying with U.S. law in terms of the Foreign Security Assistance Act. You can't use our weapons in violation of international law. That's already a law. Just apply the law we have. Nothing new. Apply that law.
Pause for a second. He just told you that his family is in the West Bank. Notice how you don't hear Kamala Harris say anything about what's happening in the West Bank. And I want to tell you why. They don't bring up the land seizure in the West Bank because when it comes to the West Bank, they cannot use the excuse that Israel has a right to defend itself. This is why they're silent on that issue. Because how is that defense when you're stealing homes from Palestinian people? The Palestinians in the West Bank can't defend themselves at all. If their homes are stolen, they're just stolen and they become refugees. Then they have to migrate somewhere else. That's why they don't bring this up. Everybody notice this? So whenever you hear these conversations and people say, well, Gaza, well, it all started October 7th, which I've told you multiple times on the show, it did not begin on October 7th, that the oppression, the occupation has been there for decades, that they have gone into Gaza before and they have mowed the lawn. This is not the first time Israel has bombed schools in Gaza. They have done this before. So it did not start on October 7th. But when you get that rhetoric from people and they say, well, it's all October 7th, bring up the West Bank. Bring up the West Bank and let them try to explain to you how Israel has a right to defend themselves there when they, again, are the aggressor. Those Palestinians living in those homes in the West Bank, trying to mind their own business, go to work and do their damn job and come back home. But if everyone in the house leaves to go to work, when you come back home, there may not be a home for you to come back to. That's just the reality of the situation there in the West Bank. So Kamala Harris isn't talking about that, and nobody's pressing her to talk about that. Now, fast forward. Thursday is supposed to be the very first interview of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Dana Bash is supposed to be hosting that interview. So, of course, they got someone who is a self-described Zionist to do the interview. You know, she's going to ask about Israel and Gaza. Kamala's going to have Tim Walz right there by her side. So she might have a shoulder to lean on and feel a little bit more comfortable when pressed on that issue. So we'll have to see, and I will be covering that interview. So there's that. So we'll have to see what is said in that interview. But again, you always have to remind yourself, there's a difference between the rhetoric and the actions. There's a difference between what you're saying to the uncommitted movement in public versus what you are saying in private. And like I told you, her rhetoric is different in public than it is in private. You told those people that in private, you were open to an arms embargo, but publicly you said no, you would never condition aid to Israel, and that Israel still has the right to defend itself. So Kamala Harris is already showing you how she would be as president. This is no different than Biden. This is no different than Obama. These are just campaign promises that she's running on, which I would argue she's not going to fulfill most of them.
Mehdi, Hasan, it was interesting in the emotional farewell, as it were, by Joe Biden. There was so much clapping and so much cheering. It was a line that almost got missed, where Joe Biden referred to the protesters. He said, "Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides." Little small things, but it seemed to show some movement, which I think gave people some hope that they might spare 2 minutes for a Palestinian American in all the hours that they had. Why do you think they didn't?
That is the $64,000 question. Was it racism? Was it fear? Was it cowardice? Was it just incompetence and bad judgment? There's multiple reasons they didn't do it. I think it was a huge mistake, an unforced error, an own goal. By the way, you mentioned Joe Biden saying,
I'm just sorry. I'm going to say it again. It was not an error. It was what she was told to do, more than likely by AIPAC or J Street.
had a point. I'm glad he said that. He also said both sides. A reminder to all your viewers, 33 times as many Palestinians have been killed since October 7th as Israelis were killed on October the 7th. The assault is still going on. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not innocent bystanders, just observers in the corner. Unfortunately, this administration is complicit in the killing. We send the bombs and the arms, as Dean says, in violation of American and international law. And it's the policy is what matters, right? And Dean's right to say that statement was a first or a second a DNC. I should point out the language she used has been used by Joe Biden and others in other settings. It's not unprecedented language, but he's right to say that at a speech, to get applause was a big deal, right? Every time Palestinian rights were mentioned on the stage, and it was only a handful of times, by AOC, by Keith Ellison, by Bernie Sanders, by Kamala Harris, it got huge applause. That Harris line, huge applause. And wherever I went at the convention, delegates came up to me, black, brown, white, saying, keep speaking up about Gaza, please. So the base supports this issue. The party wants a stronger line on Israel. It's just that the leadership's not willing to do it. And I've got to say one thing about that speech line. Dean mentioned the positive line. What really upset me was not just the erasure of a Palestinian from the stage, but Harris went out of her way to condemn the specific sexual violence on October the 7th by Hamas, but didn't mention the sexual violence that we've seen documented against Palestinians in detention right now by Israeli forces.
Yeah, and that's come out in recent months, and it's been very, very.
I will say, very impressed that Mehdi mentioned that on MSNBC. Very impressed. Yes, that is very telling. How can you talk about one side when it comes to sexual assault, but you are not willing to mention the other side when it comes to sexual assault? Maybe this is probably why they got rid of Mehdi. He can come back on as a guest, but they won't let him work there. They said, Mehdi, no. But the reality is that is something I want more people to mention and to call out as well, that she is ignoring the evidence that has been presented. Again, we have evidence that there has been sexual abuse at the Palestinian detention center, and she didn't mention it at all. And again, I'm pretty sure AIPAC wouldn't want her to mention it, just like I'm pretty sure AIPAC didn't want her to bring a Palestinian American up on that stage, even though the speech was already vetted. Got to follow the money. We'll finish this clip up here.
Clearly documented. Guys, thanks very much. Mehdi Hasan is an award-winning journalist and founder and CEO and editor-in-chief of Zateo. Dean Obeidallah is the host of the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM, author of the Dean's Report on Substack. He's an MSNBC daily columnist. All right.
So Mehdi got a chance to promote his new network too. So there's that too as well. But Common Dreams, they're really good on this, and they called it out. Why are liberal Zionists cheering as Harris echoes Biden on Gaza? J Street is eager to define the limits of acceptable criticism of Israeli government policies from the Democratic Party establishment, setting aside human rights as secondary to the mantra of Israel's right to exist. Let's go to this part here. Discussing Gaza, Harris' DNC acceptance speech began with the evocation of working on a ceasefire, of Gaza's pounding that America is funding. President Biden and I are working around the clock, yada, yada, that same narrative, right? Then I want you to listen to this. Key to Harris' brief discussion of Gaza in her acceptance speech was the customary refusal in American political discourse to attribute the slaughter to the U.S. or its Israeli partner. Instead, there was a reference to what has happened, evoking victims without victimizers in this way. What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost, desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. But you will notice there is no mention of Israel as being the responsibility for that. It goes on here. I want to highlight this part. Style aside, what Harris articulated about Israel and Palestine in her speech was no different than what President Joe Biden has been saying and doing since last fall while enabling the slaughter of Palestinian civilians. So let me tell you why people think that it's different. People think it's different because corporate media told you that it was different. there's this little thing they used to have us do with the students. And they used to always tell us, like, if you want something to really be drilled into their head so that they remember to do it, you keep repeating it over and over again. So oftentimes, like, I would send an email to students and I would repeat over again, here are the directions, here are the instructions, just a reminder, because the thing is, once you tell people something over and over again, eventually it starts to sink in. Corporate media has told you over and over again that Kamala is different than Biden on this issue. Whether it's CNN or MSNBC, you've heard it time and time again. And the more you hear it, the more you're going to believe it. And if you haven't been paying attention to what Joe Biden has said, it's going to be easier for you to believe it. But even if you have heard what Joe Biden has said, because corporate media told you that she's different, you start to believe it. It's like all of a sudden you don't even remember what you heard Joe Biden say. These things happen. Repetition works. Unless you know that's what they're trying to do. Right? Natalie said it's called gaslighting. Exactly. So the reason why so many of the people that were pro-Palestinian protesters believe that Kamala's rhetoric is different is because that's what the media told them. The media told them it was different. So they keep telling you the same thing over and over, and eventually you'll believe it. Another part that I want to point out here. See, we can do Control F on here. Nope, we can't do Control F on here. There was a part here about democracy that I wanted to highlight. Let's see. Here it is, right about here. This is something I want you guys to focus on. For J Street's leadership, the current U.S. policy hits the spot. J Street, by the way, is the liberal version of AIPAC, although AIPAC funds Democrats as well. They could not be prouder of VP Harris for her remarks on Israel and Palestine and of the Democrats' reaction. So you see that? One of the donors is happy about the way she responded. That's not a good sign. That tells you who she's working for. Listen to this part right here. Ben Ami tweeted after the convention adjourned, "This is what it means in 2024 to be pro-Israel, pro-peace, pro-democracy." Notice they don't say pro-Palestine. Notice they don't say pro-Palestinian. Pay attention to that. But I want you to really phone in on this word right here, democracy. This is what it means in 2024 to be pro-Israel, pro-peace, and pro-democracy. We have been hearing that word a lot, haven't we? Not just this year, but last year. They've been saying democracy, democracy, democracy. We have to protect our democracy, they tell you. They tell you that Donald Trump should not be reelected if we want to protect our democracy, right? They're telling you that these third-party candidates should not be on the ballot so that we can protect our democracy. So these other parties, like the Democratic Party, has been actively removing third-party candidates off the ballot to protect our democracy, as if that's democratic. But that word, they have been playing us with that word for decades. And I want to take you back. Roger Meadows, he gave me this book. Shout out to Roger. Roger gave me this book for my birthday when last time I was in New York. It's called A. Philip Randolph, A Life in the Vanguard. Now, I started to read the book and I got busy, as I tend to do, when I had to put the book down, just story of my life. But recently, I've been able to pick the book back up. My dad always told me, and my grandmother said this too, what you are seeing today, there is nothing new under the sun. There is nothing new that has not been done before. And I want to show you something that is mentioned in this book about democracy. A. Philip Randolph turned away from W.E.B. Du Bois. Listen to this now. Because W.E.B. urged Black Americans to support World War I. Let me read you this excerpt right here. While Randolph's pacifism introduced him to new friends, it also resulted in a rift with others. This is A. Philip Randolph. It was during the war that he stopped idolizing W.E.B. Du Bois. In July of 1918 issue of The Crisis, Du Bois urged Black Americans to forget our special grievances and close our ranks shoulder to shoulder with our own white fellow citizens and the allied nations that are fighting for, what's that word? Democracy. Harlem radicals reacted to Du Bois' message with shock. Black socialists such as Hubert Harrison and Randolph were incensed, particularly after they learned that the army was planning to commission Du Bois as a captain. Then it goes into President Wilson. Democracy. Here was W.E.B. Du Bois, who a lot of people love. A lot of academics praise him. But as I've been reading more about him, he was kind of, elite, bougie, let's kind of stay in the lines dude. And I'm reading more about A. Philip Randolph, who was trying to tell people, no, the workers are not going to win this way. So W.E.B. said he was making the case for African Americans to support World War I. This is around World War I. And using the excuse of democracy. Why am I showing you this, ladies and gentlemen? They've been doing this for decades. We got to protect democracy. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Trump can't win because our democracy is at stake. What's on the ballot? Democracy. They have been playing the same game for decades. They've been playing us. So none of this is new. We have to remember this when people tell you, but democracy is on the ballot. They've been saying this 1918. I highly encourage everyone, and it's a quick read. Everyone, read this book about A. Philip Randolph, because he was the socialist that I think some of us would have wanted W.E.B. to be. This is the guy who started the first Black union. He was for the workers. And he said, no, we can't go along with the establishment. We can't go along. We should not support the wars. W.E.B. said, we got to stand shoulder to shoulder, protect democracy. The older I get and the more that I read, the more I'm starting to realize a lot of these figures that were promoted in the classroom when I was growing up, these mofos were kind of milquetoast. So you hear the same thing today. And what I'm here to, I just want to shake everybody a little bit, just shake you up a little bit and just tell you that a lot of the people that were activists, if you don't hear about them, there's usually a reason for that. And the people who are heavily pushed and promoted in the classroom, there's usually a reason for that too. Those people tend to be a little bit more status quo. Notice how they promoted MLK, but they found ways to criticize Malcolm X. They found ways to criticize the Black Panthers, even though Black Panthers were doing mutual aid and started the first breakfast program. These are things you had to find out on your own. And some of the academics are notorious for promoting like the WEBs and like they don't say anything about A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph was far more like based. He said, no, you cannot join them. You cannot go with them. So we connect this to this war in Gaza. We connect this to what's happening to the Palestinian people. And I'm pretty sure if A. Philip Randolph was alive today, this speech that Kamala Harris gave about Israel, I'm pretty sure he would probably tell you, you cannot join forces with them. If you want to vote against genocide, you cannot support the parties that support the genocide. You cannot support the parties that support the state of Israel. You have to push back. The only way the workers win is by not joining the establishment that wants to censor and shut down the workers. Never forget that. Let's go to some of the comments here. And shout out to Roger for that book. That book is really good. Every now and then you get a book that you can't put down. That book is really good. Thank you for the super chat, KJ Hacks. Obama gets a pass because he can play basketball and makes college football brackets. Okay. Yeah, I know. People give him a pass for that, right? And he makes the March Madness predictions. It's ridiculous. Laricia, thank you. Can you imagine Kabama cackling in front of Putin? And Putin would have this look on his face like, what is the point of this? And, she would just be like, FM, you can't host a show, but you can come back as a guest. Yeah, I know. They did that to Mehdi, huh? VM Tor, it reminds me of a quote from W.B. Du Bois. Thank you, Wasim. I have seen old media debate footage when white South African would tell black South African, be happy what you got back in the 70s. Everybody see this? Skylar, remember what Chris Cuomo said about who was in those $1 million skyboxes at the DNC? Our election has already been bought and paid for. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Wasim, as well for this one. Keep in mind the Israelis on stage, they listed them as American Israelis. That's a clear sign it is a colony. And keep in mind, they can vote in the U.S., but they live in Israel. Oh, that's a good point, Wasim. That is a good one. Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you, Penny. Brave IDS rescued healthy Arab guard in a tunnel. Another crazy headline. Thank you for this one as well, Wasim. We also have Uncle Tom Palestinians. What that representative says is contradictory to Dems' actions. Thank you for the super sticker, Divad, Retless. Sounds like the name of an artist, Divad. Is your name David? No, I'm Divad. Thank you, Wasim. Israel also did its largest invasion and seizure of the West Bank today since 2002 Intifada, including 2 hospitals. Keep in mind, no Hamas in the West Bank. There you go. And that's why you don't hear Biden or Kamala or Trump or RFK bring up the West Bank, because they can't say Israel has a right to defend itself. And thank you for this one, Penny. Minnesota Attorney General defends Dems for dialogue, RE 10-7 terrorist. I know, I like that name, right? Divad. And I have to say it like that. I can't just be like, my name is Divad. I be like, my name is Divad. All right. Let's go to the next story, ladies and gentlemen. This one's kind of funny, I think. At least I feel so anyway. First, smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. We're going to go to this story about Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal eventually did make it to the DNC convention. I know there were some issues there. I think maybe his flight was canceled. I saw part of that on the Gryzone, but there were issues getting there. I don't know what's going on with the airlines, but I don't know why people's flights are getting canceled, but it seems to be happening quite a bit over the summer of all times. But he did make it there. And one of the things that he got the opportunity to do was to confront politicians and celebrities. And I think you're going to love this video here. Max Blumenthal asking all of these people about the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, and of course, what about the Palestinians? Check this out.
Hi, Senator Schumer. Why do you have no red line on genocide? Why do you have no red lines on the death of children in Gaza? Is there anything that will lead you to turn away from your support for Israel's genocide? Any level of dead children? Any level of murder? Representative.
So that was Chuck Schumer, who apparently didn't want to respond there. Chuck is looking kind of, hold on. Chuck looks different. Hold on.
Hi, Senator Schumer. Why do you have no red line on genocide?
See, he said, no, thank you. No, thank you. Doesn't want to talk about it. These are your elected officials. If you live in Chuck Schumer's district, are you supporting Chuck Schumer? Are you voting for Chuck Schumer? Hold him accountable. You don't have to keep reelecting this man. Maybe someone should primary challenge Chuck Schumer, but maybe challenge him from the outside. Don't challenge him through the Democratic Party. Maybe you need a strong independent or third party person to run against Chuck Schumer, someone that can get the non-voters to come out and support them. Maybe you need something like that. What a mess.
Why do you have no red lines on the death of children in Gaza? Is there anything that will lead you to turn away from your support for Israel's genocide? Any level of dead children? Any level of murder? Representative Hoyer, why do you think the Democrats have no red line on genocide in Gaza? So many children and people have been killed, and there's no arms embargo being imposed.
This is Steny Hoyer.
Why do you think that is? There's no leverage being exerted by the Democrats in any way. Could that be like all the Israel money?
I accept your premise that there's no leverage.
No leverage.
As a matter of fact, I think the president has made a significant difference.
At least he responded. Chuck Schumer just ran away. You know? I mean, Chuck Schumer exited like Max was asking him for money. Like he was like, pew, and just took off. Of course, his response is ridiculous. He's saying, well, I think the president made a significant difference. Right. How did you make a significant difference when there are more people that are killed and you're still giving Israel weapons? So you see, they're all puppets. They're all bought and paid for.
How much money have you accepted over your career from AIPAC? And do you think that's a factor in why the Democrats have no red lines?
No.
No? How much money?
Uh-oh. Notice once he mentioned money, he had to run away. He had to go now because he's talking about money. And he's, of course, Steny Hoyer's lying.
How much money have you accepted over your career from AIPAC? And do you think that's a factor in why the Democrats have no red lines?
No.
No? How much money? Reverend Sharpton, any comment on AIPAC pumping millions in to defeat black progressive lawmakers?
Yeah, he's not going to comment. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why he's not going to comment. Al Sharpton, the informant. Al Sharpton, the informant. There's a reason why Al Sharpton is on MSNBC. This is the same guy that said, I marched in the street for civil rights. I marched with the people and I fought and I was an activist and I did all those things. Just like Jim Clyburn, right? I did all those things. Not doing those things now. We're not saying people are supposed to do this their whole lives. Obviously, people get older. But obviously, you sold out in some type of way to the point that they did not consider you to be a threat. And that's why you're on corporate media. We're talking about this. We're talking about the fact that Al Sharpton, the informant, the FBI informant. He ain't gonna say nothing. No, when it comes to Israel, no, gotta be quiet.
I'm trying to rush you.
Why do you never? Why do you never comment on what Israel's doing in Palestine? It's a civil rights issue. What do you think about it?
It's a human rights issue.
Any comment on it now? Do you think that Kamala will have any red lines?
I'm not doing interviews. I gave you a comment.
He's not doing interviews, he says. He said, I hear your comment. I am not doing interviews with you. So you get to see what these individuals are like behind the scenes and not how they are in front of the camera. They're assholes. A lot of these people have big egos. They make a lot of money. They exist in certain circles that we would never see or never be a part of. And they're just straight up assholes.
Senator Booker, why have the Democrats just done so little to exercise leverage against Israel while it's...
When somebody starts out with the Democrats, I know they're divided.
Let me tell you about this clown. So Cory Booker said, when someone starts out with the Democrats, I know they're divided. Right now, I'm talking about bringing people together. Cory Booker.
Do you think it's AIPAC money? How much?
This guy is the biggest fraud that I have ever met. I saw Cory Booker in person. Let me tell you a little story, okay? This is years ago. I went to a Cory Booker speech, just like I went and saw a Kamala Harris speech. That's why I'm telling you, these people have been selected. They've been saying the same thing for years. Cory Booker, to me, was the fakest politician I ever saw. Even Kamala, she was still fake. But she had a little bit more wholesomeness to her. Like she seemed a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more. But Cory Booker was so fake. And I'll never forget this. I still can't forget like the expression on his eyes, like, exaggerating words that should not be exaggerated, his eyes bulging out when he's saying it. And there was a guy in the crowd in New Hampshire, and he said, you know what? You remind me a lot of Barack Obama. And not in a good way. You are saying a lot of the things that Barack Obama said when he came here to New Hampshire as well. And we know how that turned out to be. And after that, I was just kind of like, oh, I see someone seeing through the BS. Older dude said that to Cory Booker. That's right. I had this goal. I was on a goal one time. I was going to try to go to every speech. This is years ago. I was going to try to go to every speech, and they're usually in New Hampshire. And I saw him speak, and I saw Kamala Harris speak. Cory Booker had a very, very small crowd. Kamala Harris's crowd, it was lines around the block after block after block. It was very long lines just to get into the church where she was going to be speaking. And in the end, I didn't make it inside of the room. So I was in like the overflow area. So I had to see it up on the screen. But I'm here to let you know again, this guy's very fake. Now, he's not going to criticize AIPAC because not only does Cory Booker take AIPAC money, but Cory Booker has been present at AIPAC meetings, one that I showed on the show, where he was telling them how to recruit Black people. And he told them, you got to go get them at the colleges. That's where you have to start before they get out there in the world. So Cory Booker is willing to sell out his own people to the state of Israel. This is what you got to know about this guy. I don't know what Rosario Dawson saw in him, but apparently she didn't see much for too long because she's not with him anymore. This guy's complete fraud. The fakest, fake. Like, I don't think you could sit down at a dinner table with Cory Booker and have a real conversation. Like, this guy just screamed, fake to me.
AIPAC money have you taken over your career? And do you think that's had an impact on why Biden has not imposed a red line on Netanyahu's Project 2025 of ethnically cleansing Gaza? Is it meddling for AIPAC to donate so much money?
Oh, yeah. How many Palestinians?
We need to talk about this. The celebrification of politicians. We got to talk about this. Like, this guy is taking this picture with Cory Booker. So we can just say, look, I took a picture with Cory and da-da-da. We have to stop making politicians celebrities because it goes to their heads. They get big egos. Look at AOC. You can see this happen to her. You can see it happen to people like, what's that guy's name? I can't stand him either. Oh, Joe Manchin. You can see it went to his head. It went to Mitch McConnell's head. It went to, so this should have never happened. Politicians are supposed to be servants to the American people. They're supposed to represent their constituents, but they have been made into celebrities. And this is why they think their shit don't stink. He's not wanting to talk to Max. He just want to take pictures.
Does Israel need to kill? How many Palestinians does Israel need to kill before you impose a ceasefire?
Keenan, Max Blumenthal, the Gryzone. Any comment about?
This is Kenan Thompson from Saturday Night Live.
All the young people protesting. Any comment? No comment about all the young people protesting Israel's genocide outside. We're your fans. No comment.
Should the Biden Harris comment, bro? Should they stop the genocide or no?
I mean, is it weird to provide comic relief to an administration that's shipping bombs to a genocide? Is that weird?
Sorry.
I'm a reporter.
Movement, bro. Like, why are you downing what they're trying to do here?
So Kenan Thompson is asking Max Blumenthal, if you don't agree with what they're trying to do, why are you here? Max Blumenthal is an investigative journalist. So now journalists that only agree should be there to ask questions. Does everybody see? These celebrities are stupid. I just, it is what it is. Celebrities are stupid. These celebrities are stupid. They don't know what they're there for. A lot of them are paid to be there. Come out here, endorse Kamala. D.L. Hughley showed you himself when he walked up on the stage and he said, I said some things about Kamala Harris's career as a prosecutor, and I found out those things weren't true. But he never told you what those things were that he found out wasn't true, because he don't know. He don't know. Celebrities are stupid. That's right. I said it. Every now and then you'll find one of them that can give you a kernel of truth, that's down with the cause, that knows what the hell is going on outside of their elite bubble. But for the most part, celebrities are stupid. Investigative journalists not allowed to interview people unless he agrees with the cause.
Because they're downing tens of thousands of lives in Gaza. They just sent $20 billion to Israel for weapons. So the question is, what are you doing here, providing comic relief to an administration that won't
I'm doing my part as a citizen,
stop?
dude. It's not about comic relief. It's about real talk.
So what do you think? So let's have real talk.
We all know, like,
a word of support for all the young people protesting outside?
We all know that those issues are terrible. That's not what's up for discussion up here.
It's not up for discussion.
Of course it is. But we've discussed it a million times already.
And so what about doing something about it? What about doing something about it?
What can I do about it? Except for vote against it.
Hey, Caitlin, Max.
So he just said, what can I do about it? What can he do about it? I don't know, Keenan. You're a celebrity. You have a massive platform. Your voice alone can actually do a lot, but you don't want to do that because you don't want to rock the boat and you want to continue to make the money that you're making. Hello, somebody page Kel. Somebody page Kel. Kel, come get your friend. Come get your friend, Kel. This is why I tell you, don't look up to celebrities, fam. Don't. A lot of them don't know what's going on. They be all over the place. Okay. Hello, welcome to the Good Burger. Can I get your order? Where's Kel? Kel's a little bit more down to earth than Keenan. Keenan's one of the ones I think the fame got to his head. So what you can do about it, Keenan, is you can use your platform to speak out against it. That's what you can do. Now he goes to Caitlin Collins, who is the CNN anchor.
Blumenthal from the Gryzone. Do you think CNN's coverage after October 7th was too one-sided and it created support for genocide?
Nope.
All right, Wolf.
You see how quickly she ran away?
Max Blumenthal from the Gryzone. Why do you think Biden has shown so few red lines in Gaza?
I don't have time to talk to you.
But you're a former researcher for AIPAC. Do you think Israel has too much influence in the media?
So you see who's commentators, right? You see where these commentators come from? Wolf Blitzer, again, former researcher with AIPAC, and he is an anchor there on CNN. Do you wonder which way he's going to side on an issue like Gaza? This is why you got to see where a lot of these people come from, man. They're not putting those seats because they're good at their job. There's a lot of people that are good at their job that would be fantastic commentators on those corporate media outlets, but they put the people in that are going to go with a certain narrative. And Wolf Blitzer is one of those people.
I mean, would CNN allow someone who is a Palestinian lobbyist to work for it? Have you ever acknowledged on air while supporting the Gaza genocide that you worked for the Israel lobby?
So you got to remember, a lot of these people either work with the Democratic Party or they're delegates of the Democratic Party. So when the corporate media showed you all those people cheering and all that kind of stuff, remember, those people that are already a part of the party. You got to understand that.
We love you so much. You're amazing.
I'm Wolf Blitzer. I used to work for AIPAC, and now I support Israel's genocide in Gaza. I'm Wolf Blitzer. Is that unusual to you guys?
Yeah, they're saying wow because they didn't know. They're saying wow because look at this woman here. You see the look on her face. She's like, am I being recorded? You guys see this? Wow, wow. Yeah, because they didn't know. They don't know. They just see people on TV and they just think they're doing the right thing because they're not on the right. They're not the Republican, right? So it's easier, if you're a Democrat, it's easier to just say, oh, it's Republican media, so we don't want to believe what they say. But it's hard to criticize that of your own party.
So much.
Do you guys think
I am so sorry.
Israel has...
Is that Yvette Nicole Brown? Oh, shoot. That is her. That's Yvette Nicole Brown. So another actress, ladies and gentlemen. So you see, look at that. You see, So Max is saying, oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys think Israel has too much influence in the media?
Too much influence in the media?
It's so great right now.
By the way, for shame, Max.
For shame.
How dare you speak facts to a crowd like this?
Caitlin, nothing about all the lies CNN told about October 7th, beheaded babies, mass rape by Hamas, creating consent for genocide.
No, so that was Caitlin Collins again, don't want to speak. We also call her bootleg crystal ball, so she ran away. And it looks like this is Cory Booker again.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars you've taken from AIPAC swayed you on Middle East policy, and specifically Israel's Project 2025 of ethnically cleansing Palestine.
How much money have you taken from AIPAC, Senator? Take care. How much money have you taken from AIPAC, Senator?
Oh, Cory, you look different the last time I saw you. Cory looks different. The last time I saw Cory, he was pretty fit and in shape. You know, he's pretty, but I'm looking at Cory and we see in the back of Cory, but I'm looking at Cory now. Cory looked like you went through some breakup meals. Like, I don't know. Did Rosario do that to you? Because Cory, you looking a little thick in the back.
Do you have anything to say about?
Have you taken from AIPAC,
do you have a problem with AIPAC defeating black progressive members of Congress?
Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, any comment?
You get in the room with them. I don't. Kamala won't even give an interview. Why won't you ask her to stop sending the bombs?
I hear you.
You have influence. I don't.
Like I'm a politician. Of course I got influence. But it's not on that.
She's using celebrities as cover.
Of course we speak out over anything that's like detrimental.
So will you speak out about the genocide in Gaza?
You know what I mean? Like that's
Israel killed 100 people.
We're gonna have to
While
go.
everybody's trying to like stop all this.
Okay.
You see, I'm still standing here, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So stop trying to play me out.
We're gonna have to go this way.
You just stood on stage with an administration.
I have.
So you'll commit to demanding that the Democrats impose an arms embargo on Israel?
No, we don't know what you're saying. You know, if people still asking you the questions, no, we don't know what you're saying.
Whatever. Just ask Kamala. I don't get in the room with her. She won't talk to the media. Is there anything you can do to get Kamala to impose a red line on Israel's genocide in Gaza? It's one of the major human rights issues of our time, as you said.
I said it was a human rights issue. Now you just being
Stevie Wonder, everybody.
Oh, Lord. Poor Stevie. Stevie is just like, you know what? I'm just trying to get through all of this. Let's see what let's watch this.
Stevie, you courageously opposed the Vietnam War. Anything about Israel's war on Gaza? Any comment on that?
I the killing all wars, you know that. Hey, folks, can we move back here, please? This is an entranceway.
Could you tell Kamala to oppose the war?
Please move back. This is an.
Stevie said, I oppose all wars. And just like that, his handlers were like, let's go ahead and pull Stevie away. And I would have been like, no, Stevie, no. This is when you belt out in song and you say, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Like a fool, I've been away too long. You start out singing to Stevie. Stevie, I just called to say I love you. Listen to me. Now I get all the Stevie songs in my head. There are superstitions. See, this is why I couldn't be there. Writings on the wall.
Entranceway here. Please move back. Thank you.
Hey, Terry, how's it going? You were a really prolific fundraiser for the Democrats. How do you think AIPAC money has influenced Biden's inability to impose leverage on Benjamin Netanyahu? Netanyahu's running circles around him 10 months into this assault.
We just said Bill Clinton give a great speech, man. I'm talking about.
But do you think the AIPAC money you raised for Bill Clinton affected his handling of the peace process at all?
Go get him. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not a policymaker.
Well, we're asking you to try to influence.
And I've said it already several times.
Instead of being co-opted by the empire, stand with the young people outside.
And y'all keep asking me the same question. So, like, I'm asking you, why do y'all keep asking me the same question?
Because you're not really answering the question, because no, you're not a regular person. Stop this saying you're a regular citizen. You're not. You're a celebrity. You are not a regular citizen. You have more power and influence than the rest of us. You're in these rooms with politicians. We're not in those rooms with politicians. I don't even think Max Blumenthal is allowed to go into Congress anymore. I think he mentioned this before, that he may not be able to go inside of Congress to ask questions or something. I don't know. I forget. Anywho, you are in spaces that the rest of us are not invited into, Keenan. Stop saying you are a regular citizen. You're not. Now, you know, and these celebrities, I told you, celebrities are stupid. When they say stuff like this, now you want to be a regular citizen. But when it's time for you to get a perfect parking spot, when it's time for you to get that perfect table by the window that other people have been waiting for, when it is time for you to get the perks that you get as a celebrity, you're not a regular citizen then. You have no problem using those perks when you need to. So miss me with all of that. When you're asked a legitimate question here about the genocide in Gaza, all of a sudden it's, what am I supposed to do? I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular citizen. Now you regular.
Celebrities will not speak. Just hold cameras in people's faces?
Exactly. I'm a journalist.
Yeah, right.
I don't get in the room with Kamala won't
How does that
speak
make
to us.
policy? That doesn't make policy.
You should get mad at the people
I'm
carrying
not
out
mad
this
at nobody.
genocide.
I'm mad at
Many
you
of them
trying to
are on
act like
stage.
I'm not speaking out against things and
You're
I'm
not.
just a clown out here.
That's
Of
what
course
celebrities
I am,
are
bro.
doing for her.
That's not
You're
what
not
celebrities
demanding
are doing
anything
for
as a
nothing.
price for you to be on stage.
Come on, man.
Damn straight. If they paying you to be there, you ain't been making no demands about Israel and Gaza. You ain't made no demands, not in favor of the Palestinian people, not anything that's really of substance. If they paid for you to be there, if that were the case, they would have told you you couldn't speak, just like they told the Palestinian Americans they could not speak. Get out of here, Keenan.
The Gryzone. Who? The Gryzone. The Gryzone.com.
Can you guys click that?
No.
Can you guys come with me?
No.
Excuse me.
Oh, word.
Shout out to the Gryzone there. So I think that was when they escorted them out. From what I understand, I don't think they got the opportunity to hang around there too much longer after that. How dare they ask tough questions? What a mess. What a mess. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super sticker, Divad. Thank you, H. Luco. I think Max asked Shumi for money, got more success. I think Max asked Shumi for money, got more success. I don't know who Shumi is. Danny said Corey was hitting Rosario. Didn't know that. Wasim, Kenan Thompson and SNL has been so cringe for over 10 years. I wish Homie the Clown belted him with the sock and say, honey, don't play that. SNL's not even funny, man. Kenan, you're not even, like, you guys aren't even funny, okay? We want to talk about SNL. SNL during the 90s was the jam, okay? That SNL 90s crew, Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, okay, come on. Chris Rock, all of them, that they were funny. The skits on SNL are not funny, fam. Get out of here, Kenan. Thank you for this as well, Wasim. I remembered on SNL News Update, they made a comment on Israel. Oh, that Israel jabbed the entire population. Then Break said only Jewish ones. J lobby groups tried to get him removed. Interesting. Ooh, maybe that's why Kenan doesn't want to say anything. Thank you, Courtney. Corey's been eating up those big back meals. Corey looked like he had a little extra junk in the trunk. Like, that wasn't what Corey looked like when I saw him, just saying he, a little on the thick side now. Thank you, Mary. Please, Stevie got 10 kids to support. Oh, God. I didn't know that about Stevie Wonder. God damn, Steve. And thank you, Dwayne. Steve, I ain't seen TikTok. Stevie, I ain't seen TikTok. Oh, thank you, Dr. Thunder. Excellent analysis, third-party voter here. Thank you and welcome. Eric, let's go to part 2. What a doozy, man. What a doozy. And then we can see if we have Rockfin as well, but I think we're good. We're good? Okay. Moving on to the next story. Smash the like, fam. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Now let's get to the craziness, okay? So last week, Friday, I did a special live stream in the middle of the day because RFK Jr. was making an announcement. And my prediction was correct that RFK Jr., my prediction during that show, that RFK Jr. would be dropping out of the swing states and he would stay on the ballot in the other states and endorse Donald Trump. That was the prediction I made at the beginning of that show because I did see that he was in New York State fighting against that ballot case. And I was like, well, why is he there fighting for that if he's going to drop out completely? So I put 2 and 2 together, right? Now, since then, I do want to let you know that apparently he may not be able to remove himself off of all of the swing states because of certain deadlines that have already passed. Now, I do believe he removed himself from Pennsylvania and I believe Arizona, but he may not be able to remove all of them. He made his announcement in Phoenix, Arizona, and then he joined Donald Trump on the stage later on that day for the official announcement. I'm going to play part of this and then I'm going to have to mute it because of the music.
I don't think too many of you people have heard of him. He's very low key. He's a very low key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
So RFK Jr. comes out on the stage here, and I muted the music because you guys know with copyright and all that kind of stuff. And just to give you an idea, apparently the Foo Fighters, because they play the song, there go the hero song, My Hero from Foo Fighters, which I love that song, by the way. And apparently the Foo Fighters were not happy about this. And they issued a statement saying that they do not want Donald Trump playing their song and they're going to raise money and basically give that money to Kamala's campaign. So they weren't happy about that. But long story short, RFK Jr. was very well received by the crowd. They seem to be happy with him being a part of the campaign, endorsing Donald Trump. It's still muted because they cheered for like this long, basically. That being said, they played the song, There Goes My Hero, again, alluding to the fact that politicians are heroes. And I've told you before, politicians are not heroes, right? So you have to stop calling them that. Don't expect them to be that. Politicians are not coming to save you. We have to save ourselves. And we do that through organizing. We do that through mutual aid. We do that through building dual power. And we need to move towards building a party for working class people, as I've said before. But he did join him there on the stage. The crowd loved it. I didn't hear anybody boo. So they were very pumped and amped about that. Now, as you can imagine, the Kennedy family is not happy about this at all. Now, they were upset that he even decided to run as a Democrat, which is how it started in the beginning. They were not appreciative of it. They said they don't agree with what he's doing and that they're going to support Biden. So because the Democratic Party played hardball with him and other primary candidates, RFK Jr. decided to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. The family came out and spoke out against him again. And so now he decided to remove himself from the swing states, or the ones that he can, and stay on the ballot in the other states, so that in the red and blue states, if people still want to vote for him, they can. But he endorsed Donald Trump, and now he's aligned with Donald Trump. And now that he's doing with Donald Trump, they're definitely angry with him. And so much to the point where I believe this is Karen. Let me double check her name. Is this Carrie? Yeah. So this is Carrie Kennedy, who has spoken out against RFK Jr. multiple times since he announced that he was running. And she's definitely speaking out again this time now that he's endorsed Trump. Listen to this.
You responded to this earlier. You said that this was a betrayal of your father's legacy. Why do you think so?
Well, I think, if my father were alive today, he would detest almost everything Donald Trump represents. His lying, his selfishness, his rage, his cynicism, his hatred, his racism, his fascist sympathies, his deliberate misinformation about vaccines, his criminal felony convictions, his contempt for the poor and suffering, for ethics, for democracy, and for healing. And his cruel sneering at human rights for suffering people in America and around the world, which is the cause that so moved and motivated.
I just want to add, when it comes to that part that she mentioned there about Trump, the sneering about human rights, RFK Jr. has sneered about human rights with Palestinians. He was the one that went on to Breaking Points and said they're the most pampered people in the world. He's the one that is staunchly pro-Israel. Israel has a right to exist. Said the Palestinian people were lying. All these people that have been killed over there. So is he really that much different from Trump? Does Kerry really know Bobby in that way? Let's continue.
My father. So I'm outraged and disgusted by my brother's gaudy and obscene embrace of Donald Trump. I love my brother, but this is an outrage. And I completely disavow and separate and dissociate myself from him on this decision.
Look, I don't support RFK Jr. I think his position on Israel is absolutely disgusting. I don't support Donald Trump. He's also pro-Israel. I don't support Kamala Harris, also pro-Israel. But I gotta say something. If there is one family that has come out to repeatedly smear their family member that's a candidate, the Kennedys have been on it. Like, it's kind of weird, you know? Like, every time I turn around, they're on mainstream media and they're saying, like, my father would be appalled. My uncle would be appalled. Daddy would be appalled. And it's just like, who are you? Like, is this Dynasty? Like, I don't know. What is this? I feel like I'm watching a soap opera, like the 80s, you know, primetime soap opera Dynasty or something like that. It's really weird. Like, so you can't do things that are outside of the norms of the family. Is a family or there's a cult? Like, it make me feel some kind of way. It's just weird to me. Listen, there have been a number of times where I think people's parents may not have agreed with the decisions that they chose to make as an adult, but he is an adult. Yeah, I just don't get this. You know, people make their own decisions as adults. It is what it is. Aye.
Have you spoken to your brother lately?
No, I haven't. Bobby, I saw him a few weeks ago at my daughter Mariah's wedding. And but Bobby knows my view and my feelings very, very well.
That must be pretty difficult for you.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking because this is a time when there's so much at stake in this election. This is why almost every single person in my family is fighting so hard to reelect Kamala Harris and Coach Walz, because they've been champions of the values my family has fought for years. And Donald Trump is the polar opposite. He threatens the most basic freedoms that are core to who we are as Americans, for women to control their bodies, to live in communities safe from gun violence, which brought down Uncle Jack and Daddy, to love who you love, which impacts people in my family and people across our country and around the globe.
But why did RFK Jr. go in this direction? And here's one thing I will say is this. I think that it was a mistake for Kamala Harris's campaign not to at least meet with him and have the discussion. He reached out to both sides. And this reminds me when Ice Cube reached out to Biden and Donald Trump about his contract for Black America. And Ice Cube said, well, one side responded and said, let's meet. And that was apparently Donald Trump. And the other side said, well, we can talk after the election, which from what I understand, Joe Biden never had that conversation with Ice Cube after he won. So there's that, whatever it is, what it is. But I think it was a mistake when RFK Jr., which he confirmed that he did reach out to both sides to have discussion about unity. And he said that obviously Donald Trump responded and said, let's have this discussion. And Kamala Harris's campaign weren't interested in having that discussion. I think that was a mistake, because here's the thing. They don't know what he would have said. They don't know if he was going to offer to endorse or not. They really don't know, because they did not have the conversation. So I think you never turn that away. If they reach out to you, especially considering the fact that he was an independent candidate, reaching out to you to say, let's have a discussion, let's talk something, I still think she should have entertained the conversation. Doesn't mean you have to agree with him. Doesn't mean you got to go along with whatever it is he's offering. But I think it was a mistake not to even have that discussion, because now that RFK Jr. has joined along with Donald Trump, the reality is, and you'll see this with the polls I show you, the reality is that is going to help Donald Trump, and that is going to hurt Kamala Harris.
So, you know, these are not light issues for me. These are issues that I've spent my entire life fighting for.
Okay, yeah. So again, it seemed like they weren't happy when he was a Democrat. They weren't happy when he was an independent. They're definitely not happy that he's joined with Donald Trump. But before we get to the Tulsi part, I just want to show you something about the polls. This factor with RFK jumping in on the Trump side, how this is now changing things for Kamala Harris. Check this out.
We see Steve Kornacki's here to break down what it could mean with just 74 days until Election Day.
All right, well, we know, obviously, expecting a close election in November, so a development like Kennedy dropping out of this race could be significant. Look, he was polling. Let's take you through the history of this. We're going to start here. This is when Biden was still the candidate, pre-Harris as the Democratic candidate. And this is an average of all the national polls. So just before Joe Biden dropped out, on average, in a three-way race that included RFK, you see Trump was leading Biden. Kennedy was sitting there at 9.2% on average. And it was a lead there of 3.5 points. Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden. Now, Biden gets out of the race. Harris gets in the race. And that's been a little bit more than a month now. But you see Harris, Trump, Kennedy. A couple things you notice. Number one, in the month since Harris replaced Biden, the Kennedy support's dropped almost in half, now just over 5% on the average. And that Harris support relative to Biden, look at that. That's gone up significantly, almost 7.5 points. The Trump support is more level, only up about a point right there. So you could see Harris actually pulling into the lead here over Trump in the three-way now since she became the candidate. And here's where it gets interesting. What if, the polling's been out there without Kennedy? What does it look like, Harris versus Trump? And here you can see it. Harris still leads, but it gets tighter. Look, in a three-way race with Kennedy, Harris's margin over Trump is 2.7 points. Without Kennedy, Harris's margin over Trump is 1.6.
So actually, Kamala Harris would have been better off if RFK Jr. would have stayed in the race fully.
A little bit more than a 1 point tightening of the race with Kennedy out, according to the polls. And like these swing states, we talk about them, it's 10,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there. When you're talking about potentially the difference of 1 point, that could be massive. That could be enormous. So certainly that's why the Trump folks are excited to have Kennedy dropping out and getting on board with them. Now, the other thing, again, you notice here, we showed Kennedy support dropping. We see Harris rising relative to Biden. There's a relationship there. I want to show you two groups here. Two major groups where Kennedy has lost the most support since Harris got in the race. Latinos. Kennedy's support has dropped by 9 points with Latinos. Meanwhile, Harris's relative to Biden is up 12 with Latinos and younger voters. Kennedy's support has dropped 8 points with them since Harris became the Democratic candidate. Meanwhile, her support relative to Biden's up 17%. So there's been a relationship there. Harris has surged in part because she's taken votes that Kennedy had been getting. Now some of those remaining Kennedy votes may be a little more Trump friendly. We'll see if they transfer over.
Thanks for.
And they will transfer over. I'm going to show you a more recent poll. Again, we'll have to check these throughout the week because along with the Tulsi endorsement, this is going to say something too. But this poll was released yesterday. Shout out to Yvette Carnell for posting this. The post polling averages, this is updated August 26th, that was yesterday. Trump is leading in 4 of the 7 battleground states. Now, we're already starting to see the shift that's happening here. We're looking at Michigan. Kamala Harris is still leading there, but again, by 1. These are very close races, you guys, right? So North Carolina is Trump +1, Arizona, Trump +1, Nevada, Trump +2, Pennsylvania, Harris +2, Wisconsin, Harris +3, Georgia, Trump +3. So we are starting to see, and we'll continue to check them, but we are starting to see the beginning stages of RFK dropping out of some of the swing states and aligning with Donald Trump. We're already starting to see some of that. This is not fully yet. So remember the polls that I showed you last time, she had more momentum. She was winning in more of these swing states, or they were tied. But now things are starting to change, which means that the honeymoon period for Kamala Harris's campaign is starting to come to an end. Now, obviously, she did get a bump right after the DNC convention, which is normal. But the day after the DNC convention ended, RFK Jr. announced he was dropping out of the swing states, staying in the red and blue, which still could affect this race, by the way. The fact that he's still on the ballot in the red and the red states and the blue states, and the fact that he may not be able to fully remove himself from some of the swing states, which was brought to my attention recently. So he still may be a factor in that regard. And he has now joined along with Donald Trump. This is why I said it was a mistake for Kamala Harris to not at least meet with him, right? But they're all Zionists at the end of the damn day. Now, this one right here, the one responded to that poll from Yvette and said, in the eyes of the media, Kamala is supposed to be running away with the election, and she isn't. And that's what I've been trying to tell you guys. Because when I talk to people on the ground, I'm not hearing that. All these headlines where they're saying Kamala's surging and these polls, and where they were saying she's taken off, she's got this, she's way ahead. When I talk to people on the ground, that is not the sentiment that I'm hearing from them, particularly when it comes to Black voters. I met one Black voter that said they're supporting Kamala Harris. One. And it ain't me. So this is why I've said this before. We got to talk about what's really happening. And now we are going to add a little bit of that spicy mustard on that damn sandwich. Because you had Donald Trump, you had J.D. Vance that he picked, who's from a swing state, or kind of from the Midwest. Ohio's not a swing state anymore, but from the Midwest. Then you had RFK Jr. that was added to that sandwich. And now Tulsi Gabbard has publicly endorsed Donald Trump. Some people on social media were surprised by this. I was not, because I saw this is where Tulsi was heading. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard is an opportunist. This is not surprising to me. I will give her credit for one thing. I give her credit for endorsing Bernie Sanders in 2016 instead of endorsing Hillary Clinton. Ultimately, that ended her career with the Democratic Party. She was supposed to be the DNC darling. She was going to be the next big thing, not Kamala Harris, mind you. When that did not work out with Tulsi, they moved on to Kamala Harris. You see what I mean when I say they select people? So she wasn't supposed to do that. So Hillary felt betrayed. And so the Democratic Party say, we're going to get back at you, Hillary. Then she ran for president in 2020. And then in 2020, when she dropped out of the race, she endorsed Biden, not Bernie. Like I say, she an opportunist. She be going, I guess that was her trying to say, I don't want that heat anymore from the Democratic Party. So this time I'm going to do what the establishment wants me to do, which was to endorse Biden. And now here she is endorsing Donald Trump. Honey, the grift has come full circle.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Aloha. I know we got Hawaii in the house here. There we go. It is a privilege to be here with all of you, my brothers and sisters in uniform, especially on this day of all days. I had the privilege of joining President Trump this morning at Arlington Cemetery, where he joined two Gold Star families and loved ones of Staff Sergeant Hoover and Sergeant G, both of whom were two of the 13 killed in the Abbey Gate attack 3 years ago today in Kabul. And I can tell you, as we were there, as he laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, joining these Marines' loved ones, I felt the sorrow that he shared with them in their loss. I felt and saw his sincere appreciation for these servicemen and women who paid the ultimate price, and their loved ones who continue to grieve to this day. This is personal for me, as I know it is for so many of you here. This is real. It's not just words. I first deployed to Iraq in 2005 with the Hawaii Army National Guard as a member of Charlie Med. As those of you who were deployed during that time know, it was the height of the war, and sadly, we took many casualties. And every day we were confronted with that high human cost of war and that sadness as we boarded the plane when we left, that we were leaving some of our brothers and sisters behind, only to lose others when we got home to suicide. So I mean what I say when I share with you that I know that President Trump understands the grave responsibility that a president and commander-in-chief bears for every single one of our lives.
Why did that happen with those soldiers there, Tulsi? That would be because of a failure of our healthcare system in this country, because the VA is trash. And I know personal experience, the VA is trash, because when those soldiers get back to this country, they don't care about those soldiers. Why do you think you see so many homeless veterans out on the street? They don't care about those people. Don't want to fix that healthcare system, though.
Whether you're a soldier, you're an airman, a Marine, sailor, or a coastie, he keeps us in his heart in the decisions that he makes. We saw this through his first term in the presidency, when he not only didn't start any new wars, he took action to de-escalate and prevent wars. He exercised the courage that we expect from our commander-in-chief in exhausting all measures of diplomacy, having the courage to meet with adversaries, dictators, allies, and partners alike in the pursuit of peace, seeing war as a last resort. The truth is, as we head towards our decision as a country in November, the same cannot be said about Kamala Harris. In fact, the opposite is true, and we're living through this reality today as this administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world.
You support sending weapons to Israel. Tulsi Gabbard supports sending weapons to Israel. Look, don't get it twisted. Yes, the Biden administration has multiple wars that are happening throughout the world. I've covered that. I've talked about that. But don't get it twisted. Tulsi Gabbard supports Israel going in and doing what they feel they need to do. She has spoken about this multiple times on corporate media. She has tweeted about it. She said, give them whatever they need. Give them all the arms. Give them all the weapons. This is the same woman who spoke at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. And don't tell me it didn't happen. I was there. She spoke. We need to end these wars. End the wars. She was really good about the war in Ukraine. But once you change the country to Israel, she's totally fine with these wars. We're talking about a politician that has been against Islam and has criticized Islam and has condemned Islam for years. Let's go on.
And closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief. Because I am confident that his first task will be to do the work to walk us back from the brink of war. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. And we can't live free as long as we have a government that is retaliating against its political opponents and undermining our civil liberties, weaponizing our very institutions against those they deem as a threat.
Now, of course, you guys, I think some of you know this, but Tulsi Gabbard apparently has been put on the do not fly list, right? So they've labeled her as a domestic terrorist, supposedly. She said that this has come from Kamala Harris, or she believes that's who it has come from. So there's that. I think that's where she might be going with part of this. But let's talk about the war aspect with Donald Trump. You know, I'm getting really tired of people pretending like Donald Trump is anti-war. He's not anti-war. During Donald Trump's presidency, you need to think about the fact that he implemented multiple coups in Venezuela, so much to the point that there have been books written about this. Anya Paul wrote a book about it. Everybody tends to just shrug this off, but it happened. Don't forget, he was bombing people in Syria. This is why you have to get outside of the two-party system. It will corrupt your mind, where you are forced to defend your party regardless of what they're doing, instead of paying attention to principle. He bombed people in Syria, kids. So the same way you see those kids being bombed in Gaza and you get all emotional and you're angry and you have every right to be and you should be, don't forget that also they were bombing them kids in Syria too. And that happened under Trump. Now, a lot of people come forward, and Tulsi will probably be one to say this. Donald Trump didn't create any new wars. That motherfucker didn't end any either. Make sure you add that part. Make sure you mention how Donald Trump has the deep state that was a part of his cabinet in 2016. And he has the deep state a part of his campaign right now with J.D. Vance and the connection with Peter Thiel. You cannot overlook these things. So this is what I'm saying. Is it possible that he could make it so that we're not leading towards World War III? Possibly. But people tell you anything when they're trying to get elected. Wake up. Let's continue.
Kamala Harris has done this over the last 3.5 years. She won't hesitate to continue that if she is elected as president. President Trump has been their first and foremost target in this because they don't want us as voters to even have the option to vote for him. I've been their most recent target, added to a secret domestic terror watch list after exposing the truth about what kind of dangers we would face if Kamala Harris is elected as president. We as Americans must stand together to reject this anti-freedom culture of political retaliation and abuse of power. We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people, our freedom, and our future.
Honey, that's been happening for a long time. That did not start with this administration. Obama did that. George W. Bush did that. Bill Clinton did that. That's been going on for a long time.
I am proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. If you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
So that's Tulsi Gabbard now endorsing Donald Trump, which I predicted that was going to happen. That's why I was surprised when so many people on social media said they were shocked by Tulsi Gabbard endorsing Trump. Like, how are you shocked? She made it very clear she left the Democratic Party. She's been criticizing it very heavily on Fox News, and she advocated for Donald Trump, right? So at one point, I believe she was trying to maybe get in to be part of the campaign at some point in time, but some people thought that he was going to choose her as VP, but that didn't happen. So I was not surprised by that. Now, here's the craziness. Now, you got RFK Jr. here. I had to double check and make sure this wasn't a parody account, but it's not. RFK Jr. says, Wonder Woman just joined the league. Did everybody see this? Wonder Woman just joined the league. So here he is referring to Tulsi Gabbard as some type of a superhero. Here we go again with the hero shit. Fiorella is a real one, said all the hero worship for the genocidal Gabbard RFK team versus coconut Kamala once again proves U.S. Americans are the dumbest people in the world, the most propagandized and entirely selfish. It also proves Israel will win this election. Enjoy the show. It's only the beginning. So you see what people are creating now? They're calling them Team Unity. They got Donald Trump as Captain America. Like, this is just cracking me up. They got RFK Jr. They even put Elon Musk up in this mofo, man. Elon Musk, the guy who's censoring people on Twitter, the guy who's canceling people on Twitter, and the same people who are talking about freedom of speech and censorship and suppression, they're all like, yeah, yay, Elon Musk. Vivek's back there in the background. You know, they got him there. And then they have JD Vance over here on the other side, and now Tulsi Gabbard. So you see the hero worship that we have in this, the hero worship with our culture that we have in this country. It's a big problem. And I've been calling this out for quite some time. Politicians are not heroes. And we need to stop treating them as such. Now, what can they do? They can pass legislation. They can implement executive orders, but even some of those have to be approved by Congress, right? So a lot of our attention needs to be focused on Congress, right? But the hero worship has got to go. It's got to go. And all of these people, they're all Zionist. All of them. Instead of Team Unity, it should be Team Israel. You can add Kamala and we can change the people, right? Change the seats on the Titanic, and we can put other people there. We can put Kamala Harris here and Waltz. We can put them there, and you still got Team Israel. That being said, at the end of the day, are they as different as you think? I want to remind you of a time. Don't forget about this. Donald Trump donated to Kamala Harris's campaign. This is going to tell you again how this is a game. This is a game. And the American people are pawns. They're beating us at chess every time. So I want to remind you, Trump donated to Kamala Harris's campaign when she was California Attorney General. A lot of people forget about this. So look at this. Campaign finance records show Donald Trump donated twice, not once, but he donated to Kamala Harris twice to re-elect Kamala Harris as the Attorney General in California. So obviously, if he donated to Kamala Harris, he appreciated what she was doing as Attorney General. And Kamala Harris was a fucking cop. She locked up so many people. The judge had to tell her that they had too many people in the prison. She locked up a lot of black people, a lot of black men. Don't forget, she charged mainly black parents for truancy. She put black kids through the school to prison pipeline through that truancy law. So you got to remember, these people are all in the same club. They may be a part of different political parties, but at the end of the day, they all go to the same country club that you and I cannot even get in the front door of. And they play you. They play you. You don't donate to someone if you don't like what they're doing. So when it came to law, and I think this is why where Trump may struggle with the debate with Kamala, It may be difficult for him to debate against her about her record, where I say just focus on her record. It might be hard for him to do that because he donated money when she was attorney general, and Kamala probably just clapped back, and she'll probably just say, well, if you had a problem with what I was doing, why did you donate money to? It's going to be harder for him to challenge her on that because she is pro-police. She is pro-cop. And calling Kamala Harris a communist, I think that is a losing strategy for the Republican Party. She was a cop. And she's corporate. All a part of the same game. And now that Tulsi Gabbard is now a part of this, I will say where this will help Donald Trump as well. I think it will, again, help him with the polls, but also Tulsi Gabbard is the one that dragged Kamala Harris on the stage and calling out her record. From what I understand, she is supposed to be working with Donald Trump to help him with that debate because she knocked Kamala Harris out with one punch. The problem that Trump will run into if he comes after that same record the same way that Tulsi did is that that's not a negative to his base, because if you're a conservative and you are pro-police, when you call out, oh, you locked up all these people, if you're pro-police, you might not see that as a negative thing. So he's going to have to figure that out. But Tulsi is with him now. RFK Jr. is with him now. This is my first time, since I started this show in 2021, participating during a presidential election. And this has been one hell of a freaking year. I'm just kidding. I didn't imagine any of this. I said this year was going to be wild, but it has been crazy. Now, you don't have to support Kamala or Trump. I sure as hell am not. Shama Sawant endorsed Jill Stein this week. Jill Stein said, I'm incredibly proud to have the endorsement of revolutionary Shama Sawant and her founding working class movement. This is someone who really does fight for the workers. Shama said, there is a sharp contrast in this election. That sharp contrast is not between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Both Trump and Harris are warmongering representatives of the billionaires. The real contrast is between all these candidates and Jill Stein. And she's correct. You can support and vote for an anti-genocide, anti-Zionist, pro-worker, pro-reparations, pro-living wage, pro-healthcare candidate. And this is what the left used to strive towards. But after Bernie Sanders, it just seemed like people just willing to settle for anything now. Even some of the progressive commentators, let's just go with whatever we got. Let's just go with Kamala. Problem that you're running into this time around is that October 7th really make you look kind of bad. Really makes you look a little bad. So I will be supporting Jill Stein. I'm not supporting anybody in the two-party system. And for the people who like to voter shame, let me make something very clear to you. I'm going to need you mofos to learn how to do math. Because I'm seeing this one here. Terry loves America. Jill Stein is not on the ballot in all 50 states. This makes it impossible for her to win the presidency. But she can be a spoiler, just like she was in 2016. Given the election to Trump, don't waste your vote, Terry says. Terry loves America. But Terry apparently doesn't love math or civics. It appears we might have to do some type of a civics lesson on the show to explain to people how the Electoral College works. So I retweeted this and I said, that's not how math works. The Electoral College determines the election. Jill didn't win any Electoral College votes in 2016. Even if Jill wasn't on the ballot, I still wouldn't vote for Kamala. Jill is not a spoiler. She is the better option. 2.5K likes on that tweet. Let me break this down for people who may be confused. This idea that if Jill Stein or Cornel West or I think Dr. Kesheev is still on the ballot in some states, Claudia De La Cruz. If these people were not running, that we would support Kamala Harris is bullshit. If I wanted to vote for Kamala Harris, I would vote for Kamala Harris, okay? If Jill was not on the ballot, I just would not be voting for the president, but I would vote for the ballot measures and I would vote for, obviously, the congressional races. So that's that. Let's go ahead and debunk that, okay? Because they seem to think that because we see Jill there, we're not going to. No. 2. The Electoral College determines the election. The last time a third-party candidate received Electoral College votes was 1968, and that was via George Wallace. All these people who come to you and they tell you that Jill cost Hillary Clinton the election don't understand civics and they don't know how to do math. Three, people need to understand that you have to build the third party movement. For all the people that say, oh, you're wasting your time and da-da-da. No, I would say wasting my time is continuing to vote for the Democratic Party that is not delivering anything to my community, to young people in this country. That was wasting my time. Voting for Barack Obama was wasting my damn time. Volunteering for Bernie Sanders just for him to turn over to the establishment and throw his movement away, that was a waste of my time. But what we need in this country is a worker party. We need a party for workers, and you have to build it. Everything is not going to be on a sheet of paper at the drop of a hat, just completely packaged up and ready for you. The problem is some people don't want to build anything. They just want what's already there. When you look back at Justice Democrats, this is what they tried to do. Democratic Party's already there, so let's just put them into that party and get them to change the party. In theory, it sounded like a good idea, but in practicality, it did not work because of the corporate money and electoral politics that controls those politicians, including the Dem leadership. Did not work. So these people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC is long gone cause. Let's leave her alone. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, some of the other squad members, well, that are now gone now. These politicians should have had a different party that they could have been a part of. A party that is pro-worker. A party that supports Medicare for all. A party that supports increasing the minimum wage, but also giving you a damn living wage. A party that supports housing for all. And don't even tell me we can't do it, because right now, boo, in California and Oregon, they already put money aside to help people who just immigrated to the country, to help migrants get homes. I want housing for all. There should be a party for those people so that they do not have to sit in the Democratic Party that has moved further to the right, but is being called communist by the Republican Party, which is a load of bullshit. They should not have to sit and endure that and deal with that just because that's the way the system is designed. If you want things to change, you have to change the system. You cannot operate within those parties and change it. Shama Sawant started Workers Strike Back, out there advocating for the workers, trying to help people unionize across the country. But the goal of Workers Strike Back is to evolve into a workers' movement, workers' party. Something for the workers. These people are not going to fight for you in the duopoly. You watch the Democrats crush a railroad workers' strike. You're seeing it on both sides. They're bought by Wall Street, the military industrial complex, and freaking billionaires. It's just a reality, folks. So there needs to be something for those other people. The UK has multiple parties. They have a worker party in the UK, an actual worker party. I'm not talking about that damn Labour Party, but actual worker party. We don't have it. And I think those people deserve the right to have that. It is 2024. It is time for a damn change. I'm so sick of this. Oh God, we're stuck with this person and that person again. I'm so sick of it. And I'm sick of people looking towards these people as some like a hero. People are literally sitting at home waiting to November saying, who's going to be the one to save us? And every election cycle, no one's going to save you. Jill Stein isn't going to save you either. She is a small piece of the puzzle to building something greater. But we have to seriously organize, get motivated. And the other thing is we have to pay attention to what is happening locally. A lot of these people running, they're making a lot of good promises. And a lot of these things cannot be done unless it's passed in Congress. And they're not telling you that. And even when Bernie Sanders ran and he said, I would implement Medicare for all on day one, Bernie didn't tell you it still has to pass through Congress. So when people say you're throwing away, you're not throwing away your votes. You're making a statement and you're working to build a larger thing. After November, when this campaign's over, after November, Shama Sawan and Jill Stein are still evolving a movement. What's Kamala going to be doing? What's Trump going to be doing? And everyone else will go back to sleep like sheep. Let's look at that poll. I'm curious to see what you thought about this. If Kamala loses, what would be the main reason? We have 2,431 votes. It just changed. This is probably the closest poll I've had on the show. This poll is pretty tight. 28% said Gaza. 11% said Trump, RFK, and Tulsi coalition. 19% say the economy, which, that included inflation with that too. But get this, folks, and someone needs to take a screenshot of this. Eric, can you take a screenshot of this? Everybody needs to see this. Most of the people in this audience said 42% she wasn't a strong candidate. I'm going to have to take a screen. We're going to take a screenshot of this and I'm going to have to share this on Twitter because people need to see this. So first place is she wasn't a strong candidate. Second place is Gaza. Third place is the economy. And fourth place is Trump, RFK, and Tulsi coalition. Very interesting. What's wrong, Corn Bejesus? Corn Jeebies? Corn Jesus? Where did you go? I lost you. But Corn Jesus said basically all of the above. Let's get that comment on Rumble, Eric. Yeah. Thank you, Saka Papa, for the Rumble rant. Imagine Nick telling Keenan deeply unserious. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Dave. Congressional security makes sure no significant questions are asked. Thank you for that. Corn Jesus, where did Corn Jesus go? Okay. I actually ended pretty early, so maybe we can do call in tonight. Eric, you up for call in? Let me know. I think we can still do it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm back to ending the show on time. Okay. I think I am going to do call in tonight, guys. Is that okay with everybody? You guys want to do call in tonight? Anybody? Anyone? In the chat? Call in? Yeah. Okay. So that is where, okay. Eric said, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to take a quick break. Eric's going to read the rest of the super chats. I'll come back and we'll do call in. That's where I do an after show once a week. So you can call in and you can talk to me and like rant and vent. And we do it through Zoom. So yeah, Eric, whenever you're ready, let me know and I can pop off And I think we have like 11 super chats, and then yeah.
All right. Let me find my mic.
Oh, sorry. Eric was not prepared for this because I thought we weren't going to do it, but since I ended rather early, I think we can.
We're all good. All right, cool. All right, so this is the part of the show where we give Sabby a little break. Where's Colin? Yeah. Also, we'll be posting the link for the Zoom room, and then you can hit the link and get in there. Clear that off. So Sabrina's actually going to be setting up that room during the break, and then we can hear. We like to hear what you have to say out on Colin. Actually, I'm trying to get this Rumble rant in here because we just had a late appearing Rumble rant. Where is it? Here we go. All right, and I just have to click one other thing, and we'll read off some Rumble rants and some of your other chats. Doing everything on the fly. Here we go. Thanks for the Rumble rant from Soccer Papa. Sabby, do you really think that if there were a fledgling party, even with the 5% funds level, would the likes of AOC be with that party as opposed to an establishment party? I doubt it. Yeah, we can even talk about this in the Zoom Hangout, formerly known as Call-In. Personally, I think that the way the political system operates, it attracts really the worst people to join in and like participate on these things, and so the ones that are there are like they're in it for the money. You know, they are really, the majority are hopelessly corrupt, really. If you were able to get some kind of new party, workers' party, third party movement established and up and running, so it looks like it's actually a thing, then I think you could get some people like squad members and some of the so-called progressives in Congress kind of on board to shift over. But you know, in general, my answer would be no. Like there's a reason why these people are in the system and in these parties, and it's not because they're trying to do the right thing. I mean, they're trying to get paid, and they're just not going to do the right thing because it's the right thing. All right, thanks for the super chat, Kevin Wayne. Thanks, Sabby, for reminding us about RFK Jr.'s Gaza crap. Speaking of reminding, I mean, personally, I think that this is almost like the last time that we'll even have to talk about Tulsi and Bobby Kennedy Jr. I feel like it's like this is kind of the last hurrah. I mean, the reason these people run for president in the first place is to get attention, and so it's like, why there's going to be like no reason to talk about any of them unless they can generate some big controversy or something. Thanks for the super chat, Sparky. Trump also let Pompeo talk him into assassinating Soleimani. Yeah, that's actually a big one. That's a really good point from Sparky there, that you can't be anti-war and be assassinating Iran's leaders at the same time. And we were fortunate that didn't erupt into a very large and nasty war. Thanks for the super chat, Trash Panda 82. Thanks for the super sticker, I should say. And thanks for the super chat, New York Varsity Sports, who we usually see in the Zoom Hangout. We'll see if Jason stops in. Captain America is from Brooklyn. Captain America served in the military. He runs toward a problem and not away. Trump is no Captain America. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Baby Ethernet. Independent media is crucial. Getting these flip-flopping politicians on record for their foolish games will bring Americans to a larger coalition. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Cynical. You need to clip that quick civics lesson, yes, we will have a clip of that segment, and that'll be in there. Thanks for this super chat, Buster Peak 21. Quote, I'm not going to participate in a system I believe deserves to be destroyed. From random YouTuber. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Cam35. Thanks for the super chat saying for doing it the right way. Appreciate that. Another thing that occurred to me is like the whole concept of swing states is really just a duopoly concept. It's like you only have these swing states when we have these razor thin elections, and we keep having these razor thin elections. Why? Because both parties are basically the same. So why would your average voter vote more for one party or the other? And so when you have these razor thin elections, the electoral college comes into play. If you have a wave election where a candidate is getting a significant majority, like across the country, then that overwhelms anything that can happen with the electoral college. They just end up winning just the vast majority of the states. But the way the system is basically almost constructed to prevent that. It benefits from these close elections. You basically just have two candidates that support the status quo and the money, the billionaire, the corporate system. And so they fight it out amongst themselves. But what happens is every election, right, the billionaires win. And that's how the system operates. And what's really needed to do something serious about that is a larger movement. And, I would say a larger movement that's really focused on dealing with the money and the corruption, and that has real demands for how we deal with that and how we fix that, essentially.
That's right, Cuzzy Cliffs. Okay. Shout out to Susie Stone for becoming a member. And we are going to move over to the call-in segment of the show. So if you look at the YouTube live chat, there is a comment that is now pinned. The poll is gone. That is the link there to join the Zoom room. The passcode I will put in as well. Let me go ahead and open up the room. I like to do that when I'm on the show just to make sure people can get in safely. And then let me go ahead and put the code up on the screen just in case it asks for it. Sometimes it does ask people to enter the code, and sometimes it doesn't. Let me put this down. It does ask. I ask that you mute yourself when you enter the Zoom room. And the way that this works.
Let me get into it here.
Okay.
We also do have.
Code is here on the bottom of the screen, 556809. If they ask you for it, it looks like there's a couple people that are already in the Zoom room. So yeah, it's pinned there, and that's how you can join. I'll just wait a couple seconds to make sure. And if you want to speak, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to this, on Zoom, there's an option where it says reactions. You click on reactions and you raise your hand. You click raise hand, and that's how you get to see speak. I see a couple of people already have their hands raised. So I think we're pretty good to head on out, Eric.
And I want to say we do have the link also at sabrinasalvati.com. So if you go to sabrinasalvati, you can get it from there. And you could even put that on Twitter even and stuff for people to get to it.
Yeah. sabrinasalvati.com. You can get it there. And the link is also pinned in the chat, the live chat.
And,
let's go ahead and
co-host
over there. Yeah, I'll make you the co-host. And
right, I'll see you in there.
Okay, Eric has been made a co-host. All right. And let's go ahead and get to moving. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'll be back live Thursday night. There's supposed to be that interview with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So stay tuned for that. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.